Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN WhatIf 2.0, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Smiled Without a Quirk? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. It's late and cold. Logically, Midoriya Izuku knows he should be at home getting ready for bed, but he's not. His phone is on mute, but he already knows he doesn't have any notifications. No missed calls, no unanswered texts. Nobody will ever notice that he's missing. Stupid, quirkless Deku isn't someone worth worrying about. Take a swan dive off the roof and hope you have a quirk in your next life. Bakugo's words repeat over and over in his mind. Part of him wants to think that Bakugo didn't mean what he said, that the literally explosive boy was having a bad day, and he'll get an apology tomorrow. He imagines getting a pat on the shoulder without a burst of pain and a new scar, and sitting next to Bakugo at lunch, talking about how their mothers are doing. He imagines talking about how they're both going to work together to get into UA and become heroes. He knows that's not how it's going to go, though. Ever since he got diagnosed as quirkless, the word is bitter on his lips and tongue as he forms it silently. Bakugo hasn't had an ounce of respect for him. A friendly rivalry has turned into an outright hatred of anything related to quirkless, worthless, pathetic Deku. You'll never be a hero, a sharp voice hisses in the back of his mind, not without a quirk. Midoriya's lips curl into a dull smile. He's dreamed about being a hero like All Might his entire life, smiling in the face of danger and helping people with ease. His shoulders slump as he realizes the people he dreams about saving would never give him more than a disgusted glance, all because of the extra joint in his toe. The extra joint that makes it impossible for him to have a cool, flashy superpower. He takes one last glance at his phone, hoping for one notification, it doesn't matter what kind. There's nothing. His last text is from his mother, the date is from early last week. He looks at the time and dully notes that he's missed dinner. It's not like he has anything waiting for him anyways. His mother stopped cooking a long time ago. He relies on money he either finds or steals from her drawers to order takeout or buy ingredients for simple meals. He wonders if she'll even eat once he's gone. On one hand, he's glad he has the skills, since cooking is a good thing to know. On the other, he hates the fact that he's been forced to fend for himself. He's struggled through weeks without any money, meals reduced to 1 or 2 every few days. Living with his mother is like living by himself, only there's a person who sometimes stumbles out of the bedroom down the hall and wails about his father, or tells him that he needs to be more like Katsuki. Stop getting into fights, stop getting in trouble, work harder in school. He's trying his hardest. His teachers refuse to believe someone quirkless can be smart. The fights are caused when enhanced fists collide with his nose and he lashes out in panic, desperate to escape. Katsuki is the reason he's staring down at the unforgiving concrete sidewalk from the school roof. He's done some minor calculations. The roof isn't high enough to kill him unless he falls at the perfect angle, snapping his neck on impact. That won't happen unless he's really unlucky. He's probably going to break a few bones and maybe get a concussion if he hits his head hard enough, but other than that he'll be okay. He wants to know what it feels like first. If he likes it, he's going to find a taller building. He's going to climb so high up nobody will be able to save him, and then he'll fall. He's going to stay out here all night if he needs to. He hasn't figured out how he's going to manage to walk away, but that's a problem for 5 minutes from now. Midoriya. He slips off his shoes, bright red and worn down. They're the only quirkless shoes he can afford to buy. The materials are cheap but they're okay otherwise. He unties the All Might themed jacket from around his waist and sets it on the rooftop. He doesn't want to think about the hero at the moment, but the jacket is a collector's item. He doesn't even want to think about it splattered with blood and stained with dirt, partially because he's been a fanboy for so long, and partially because it's something he can sell if he survives and things get even worse. He sets his backpack, full of hero analysis notebooks, on top of it. He pauses for a moment before stepping over the railing. Does he really want to do this? Isn't this just proving Bakugo right? He shakes his head. This is the only option for him. His mother is basically a walking corpse. His best friend told him to kill himself. He's covered in scars and bruises, and everything aches. He's tired. He doesn't let himself reconsider before his tight grip on the railing falters and he leans forwards. He plummets, wind whipping at his curly hair and his baggy clothes. The fall feels like eternity, but he knows it only takes a minute or less. There's a sickening crack as he lands on the concrete. His head bounces up once and then falls back down. His limbs make disgusting crunching noises as they make contact with the ground. He opens his eyes once again, finding his limbs contorted into unnatural positions. His legs are facing the wrong ways, and the way his left arm is twisted makes him feel slightly sick to his stomach. A few of his fingers are mangled and probably broken, a sickly purple color at the tips. There's a sharp pain at the back of his head. He reaches up with his less injured arm and feels wet, sticky blood pooling around it. Sheet, I hit my head too hard, I must have miscalculated. He grimaces as he looks up at the sky, a mix of pink and orange hues, dotted with the faint beginnings of night stars. He smiles. It's, at the very least, a pretty thing to see before he dies. Blood seeps into the fabric of his shirt, making it stick uncomfortably to the skin underneath. Dark green turns crimson as his head wound leaks blood into his hair, matting his curls together and turning them damp. His phone is probably ruined too, either from the fall or from the blood. It's not like he needs it anymore. Tears form in the corners of his eyes and he's unable to blink them back, even subtle movements causing extreme pain. He's never going to be a real hero, everyone was right. He's just a stupid Deku. He imagines the classroom gossip. Deku couldn't handle a bit of teasing and jumped off the school roof. It took forever to clean up the blood, even his death was annoying. He laughs, watery and humorless, as he thinks about Bakugo calling him pathetic again. He is pathetic. His vision is starting to go blurry around the edges, blood bubbling and gushing through his teeth as his laughter dies down, staining his grin red. The metallic scent overwhelms everything else as the pool spreads, gleaming in the light of the sunset. He wonders when he'll be found. Someone will either trip over his corpse, or someone coming to school will see him. He wonders if anyone will care about another quirkless suicide, or if they'll just shrug him off and call him a waste of resources, celebrate his death like he was a burden to the entirety of mankind. He can see the headlines now, they'll use him as a nameless statistic. Midoriya Izuku will be replaced with Quirkless Boy. He'll be thrown into a news story and used as another reason why quirkless people are a burden, why they don't deserve healthcare, why they're pathetic and weak-minded and inferior. He closes his eyes again, trying to stop crying. Will his classmates laugh about it? Will they feel anything except annoyance when they look at the gore? Outside the window? Will Bakugo be glad he's chosen to take his advice? He feels an odd, sort of tingly feeling in his body, hears a raspy voice, and then goes limp as someone picks him up. He should be dead. It's the only thing he can think of, currently, despite the soft pillows surrounding him and the faint sound of muffled voices. That's odd, he always thought his afterlife would be different. Something involving heroes, maybe. He slowly opens his eyes and finds out that the room is small, but not awful. He wants to ask where he is, but his throat is dry and scratchy, so he can only make a raspy groaning noise. There's a loud, excited gasp next to him and he looks over to see a girl, probably his age, leaning over him. "Ooh, you're up. I'm supposed to give you this." She opens a bottle of water and hands it to him. He takes it gratefully and swallows a few large mouthfuls, soothing his throat. He pulls away once he's hydrated and looks over at the girl again. "Where am I? Who are you?" His voice still cracks and scratches, but at least he can form actual words. The last thing he remembers is hitting his head on the pavement and bleeding out in front of his school. And as far as he knows, there's no way a quirkless person could survive a head wound like that unless someone miraculously saved them. Nobody was around to save Izuku Midoriya. The girl leans in even further, her legs swinging as she rests her chin in her palms. Midoriya takes a moment to observe her appearance. She has pale skin and yellow eyes with sharp pupils, as well as messy blonde hair. She's not threatening him, and he can move freely, so he's not going to start panicking yet. "I'm Toga Himiko, and you're a cutie. It was so fun finding you covered in all that blood." Weird, concerning, but oddly enough, not the strangest thing someone has said to him. "We thought you were dead. but then your body started fixing itself. That's one hell of a quirk, you know. What's your name? Quirk? No, that's not right. He doesn't have a quirk. He has the extra toe joint, and he's never shown any signs of a quirk. How would his body just fix itself? How would he be able to come back to life? Surely this girl is mistaken. She doesn't seem completely stable. Maybe she was imagining things. But that doesn't make sense, because if she was imagining it, he wouldn't be alive. There's no way she could revive him by herself, and as he reaches up to the back of his head, he realizes there's no wounds or bandages. Just old, dry blood making his hair clump together. What the F dash? No, I don't have a quirk. Unless it randomly activated? But why now? Was it because of the fault, but it's never healed any other injuries, so maybe. He trails off when he realizes he's mumbling and then waves his hands in front of him. Sorry. That's a habit. My name is Midoriya Izuku. It's nice to meet you. Okay, introductions are finished. Where am I? Did you bring me here yourself? He asks again, since she never actually answered his first question. Toga shakes her head, hair bouncing as she does. Right? So he's assuming she's not alone. That might make things a little more difficult, but he doesn't think he's in immediate danger. You're with the League of Villains. And nah, twice and Dabi carried you here using Kurogiri's quirk. They're with Shigaraki and I'm on watch duty. The others are out somewhere, you'll probably meet them soon. She beams at him and he notices that she has teeth that are almond fang-like, reminding him of a vampire. If you feel like you can stand, I can probably introduce you now. She adds. Midoriya hesitates. Introducing himself to villains seems risky, but it can't be any worse than his life with Bakugo. He adjusts his position and stands slowly. His head still hurts and he stumbles at first, his legs protesting the sudden weight on them, but otherwise he feels okay. He thinks he can probably walk with only minimal discomfort, as long as it's a somewhat short distance. He adds that to his mental notes. Just because he's not dead doesn't mean that all the pain is gone. I think I'm okay, he replies. Toga squeals excitedly before opening the door to the room and rushing through. Midoriya follows her, slower and a bit more cautious. This could all be an act, he reminds himself. I can't defend myself, but I can probably survive using my quirk. Saying he has a quirk is still so strange, still completely illogical. He definitely needs to test it out later. Does it only activate when he dies? Does it affect large injuries? Can he die? Hands latch around his arm as he snaps out of his thoughts and looks up. Toga has led him to a room with a few other people in it, just like he thought she would. He fights the urge to turn and run as they look over at him. Midoriya said he's feeling better now. Toga announces proudly before guiding him to a chair. A man in a skin-tight, black and white suit leans in. His facial expression is hidden by a matching mask. You look great. You look like Sheet. Midoriya blinks at the sudden change in tone. Nobody blinks, so this must be normal. Then again, he probably does look like Sheet. He's covered in dry blood, coating his clothes, hair and skin. He hasn't slept in weeks and his last meal was half a bag of chips. He shrugs as a man with patchwork skins looks over at him. He raises an eyebrow slightly, but otherwise he remains mostly expressionless. Midoriya can't tell what he's thinking, and he's usually decent at figuring out things like that. Leave him alone, twice. Nobody's gonna look like a model after jumping off of a building. The man turns and looks over at the counter. Shigaraki, are you done yet? You've been looking at those books for like an hour. Shigaraki, Midoriya now knows, is the one with blue hair and a strange hand over his face. He doesn't reply, and Midoriya leans in slightly to try and see what he's looking at. A crude sketch of Endeavor catches his eye, and he blinks in surprise. Are those his analysis notebooks? Why has he been looking at them for so long? The page turns and Shigaraki looks up, face turned towards Midoriya even though it's mostly hidden by the hand. Your analysis is impressive, especially for your age. His voice is scratchy and sharp as he flips the page again. Midoriya's ear tips turn hot at the praise. He's never been complimented on his analysis. He's been told it's weird, creepy, and stalkerish, but never impressive. Somehow, The villain seems to be more interested in his Quirk rambles than the people who were supposed to encourage him. Shigaraki seems to be looking at the 10th volume. It's not his favorite, but it has a few good tips. How many of these do you have? Midoriya pauses before mentally trying to figure out how many he's filled out. It's definitely a large number. Maybe 13 or 14. I've been writing them since I was like 0.6. He rubs the back of his neck, leaving out the fact that the first books were full of All Might fanboying and childish scribbles. Those pages mostly consist of praise and stickmen with poor attempts at All Might's signature hairstyle, not much actual information. He knows he's gotten a lot better at writing, but he always likes to improve, adding more detail and new sections. He has sections focused on how the heroes can improve their quirks and get past their weaknesses, but these guys don't seem very eager to help the heroes survive. I've been interested in quirks for a long time. He would be a valuable asset, Shigaraki Tamura, the man cleaning the counter, speaks. He's seemingly made of some sort of smoke, two glowing yellow eyes in the purple mist that makes up the place where his head would be. Shigaraki mutters something and closes the book, tapping a few fingers against the side of his neck. With a sigh, he stands and walks towards Midoriya. Midoriya looks down at the hands that cover a lot more than his face, clinging to different parts of his body. He moves slowly, almost begrudgingly, before stopping in front of the boy. He sticks out a hand, one finger curled to his palm. Midoriya assumes his quirk activates when he touches something with all 5 of his fingers. I'd like to offer you a position, Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya's brow furrows as he sits up a bit straighter. A position? He asks after a moment. On one hand, these are villains. Ones who seem to take pride in it, making barely any effort to hide their true intentions, but it's better than lies and backhanded compliments. On the other, this is the nicest he's been treated in a long time. Avoid villains, Midoriya, his mother's bored voice echoes in his mind. They'll hurt you, you're too weak to defend yourself without a quirk. He internally scoffs at the first part. Civilians have hurt him more than anyone in this room has so far. What kind of position, exactly? Analysis, mostly. We'll need the rest of your notebooks, and you'll have to update us when you learn more. Shigaraki leans in slightly, observing him. You haven't been treated well, have you, Midoriya? Midoriya's breath catches in his throat and he swallows the lump that quickly forms. Covered in scars, nobody worried that you're gone. He lowers his hand and pulls out a familiar phone. The screen is completely cracked and bloodied, but it still turns on when he hands it over. He's right, of course, not a single notification outside of reminders from his games. He opens his messages after a moment of hesitation, staring at the one from his mother once again. Geez, it's been months? That's rough, Toga remarks as she leans over his shoulder to look at the messages. She doesn't seem to care much, does she? There's barely any emotion in these texts. He hates to admit it, but she's right. Even on special events, like his birthday, there's no special messages. He wants to give her the benefit of the doubt. His father leaving impacted her harshly, even if he wasn't that good of a man, and finding out her kid was quirkless didn't help. You're her child, she shouldn't be treating you like this. He shakes his head before his phone vibrates, a notification popping up at the top of the screen. His heart jumps to his throat. Kachin, Deku you quirkless wannabe, yep, that's typical. He probably misses having his punching bag around. Kachin, if you're not going to take my advice and swan dive off the roof, at least show up for class. Midoriya wants to laugh at the last message. Swan dive off the roof, huh? He fights the urge to tell Bakugo that he did, that he can see the proof if he looks outside. But it's not exactly believable at this point. After all, if he jumped off the roof it would be all over the news. Quirkless suicide number probably 50 at this point. A name in a list of victims. Ooh, who's that? He's not even cute. Toga sticks her tongue out as she points to the picture of Bakugo he's set for the contact. Midoriya sighs as he stares at the texts. Bakugo isn't typing anymore, he probably got distracted. He trowels off. Friend? No, that doesn't seem right anymore. Friends don't tell each other to swan dive off the roof. Classmate, the word feels heavy on his tongue as he slips his phone into his pocket. The voice that keeps saying this is the best he's been treated within the past few years is winning, the one screaming about the danger of working with villains dying out until it's nothing but a soft whisper. He's never going to be a hero. Nobody is going to want to be saved by a suicidal kid with a non-flashy quirk. So there's only one option. Showing Bakugo just what this Deku can do, what his actions have pushed him towards. I'll need to get my notebooks and clothes and stuff like that. I need to clear some stuff up too. I think I'm ready otherwise. All he has to do is sneak into his old room, grab his belongings, and then come back. Give me a few hours tomorrow and I'll be ready by evening, he adds. The man with patchwork skin seems to smirk, although the emotion is still unreadable to Midoriya. Toga, on the other hand, radiates excitement as she rushes towards the man in the skin-tight suit twice, he recalls. He seems just as excited. Well, half of him seems just as excited, the other half is complaining. I won't tell anyone about this, not that I have anyone to tell, he adds, sensing Shigaraki's skepticism. So we have a deal? Midoriya nods, and he can almost feel that Shigaraki is grinning under that hand. Perfect. He turns to the man made of mist and waves his hand. Kurogiri, send him back. We'll retrieve him when he's ready. A dark, purple vortex forms in front of Midoriya and he pauses, hesitant. It's safe, we've all used it more than once. The green-haired boy steps through, coughing a few times and then looking UO. He's in front of the school, the sky still a bright and clear blue. He checks his phone, finding out it's around 3 p.m. He has plenty of time to get home, and it's not like anyone cares if he skips his classes. Hey, you son of a beach. He turns and sees Bakugo storming up to him, tiny explosions popping like fireworks in his hands. Where the have you been? You think you just get to ditch? God, to think a quirkless dumbass like you would even think of applying to UA. Midoriya rolls his eyes, mentally making a list of things he needs to grab before returning to the league. He has a lot of notebooks to get, so he needs space for those. He doesn't have a lot of cloths, but he does have some shirts he wants to bring, and some merch. Oh, and he really needs a shower, he's still sticky and gross from the blood. Don't ignore me, Deku. I'm done listening to you, Bakugo. The lack of a nickname seemingly catches the other boy off guard. You're right. I'm a quirkless wannabe. I'm never going to be a hero. He shrugs, ignoring the childish part of him that wants to gloat or show off his quirk. Bakugo will just insult it anyways, call it useless. I'm going to be something better. Bakugo's brow furrows slightly as Midoriya smirks at him, condescending and wicked, the words rolling off his tongue like drops of poison. I hope you don't think this is the last you're going to see of me, Bakugo. He turns and starts walking, ignoring the taunts and yells of his classmates. His house isn't far, but it'll probably take at least 15 minutes by foot and he doesn't want to waste any more time. Something in him feels lighter, like he's escaped the imaginary shackles around his ankles. The sun beats down on his skin as a breeze flows through his unruly curls. Midoriya stops and looks back. Bakugo must have seen some of the blood, because he's gone rigid, the explosions in his hands have vanished. Figures, that's what he notices. Good luck, future pro. The words are laced with something threatening, hidden behind Midoriya's usual bright smile and a casual wave of his hand. The look melts into something dangerous, the corners of his lips tugging down as he lowers his hand to his side again. He picks up his pace until he's sure Bakugo isn't following him. He slows down again once he's certain and takes a deep breath. He reminds himself he has plenty of time to think things through. There's a cat in front of him, orange and basking in the pleasant sunlight, and he stops to pet it as it purrs. He casts one last look in the direction of the school. You're going to need it. He finds the spare key to his house in the same spot he remembers, unlocks the door, and pushes it open. The first thing he notices is that the place is disgusting. There are empty containers scattered everywhere, as well as bottles and shattered glass on the floor. The air reeks strongly of alcohol and smoke. His mom probably let some random people crash here and didn't bother to check in on them. He almost finds it funny, his mother used to be dedicated to keeping this place clean. That was before he was diagnosed quirkless, of course. Her spiral started shortly after his father left the two of them. He hasn't even been gone that long, a few days at most. He doesn't know how the hell she's gotten the place so gross, but it's not his problem anymore. It's not like he's going to be sticking around. He kicks aside an empty takeout container and makes his way to his room, slipping the door open. Thankfully, his room isn't trashed. His rare All Might collectibles are untouched, and nothing seems to be missing. He doesn't feel as much joy upon seeing them as he used to, but they don't make him sad or angry, so he leaves them as they are. If he's ever desperate for money, he can grab some of the ones he doesn't care for as much and sell them for some good money. He finds a bag in the corner of his room and unzips it, starting to pack. He grabs his clothes first, ignoring things that are blatantly hero-themed and choosing mostly simple hoodies, shirts, and briefs. He takes a moment to think before grabbing an Eraserhead-inspired scarf. It's simple enough to be mistaken for a plain scarf, so it should be fine. Once he's satisfied, he closes his closet and moves on to the rest of his room. He packs his notebook so he doesn't forget, putting the first few in a separate pocket of the bag. He takes his laptop, some portable consoles, his chargers, and then grabs his only working pair of headphones. They're bright yellow, but any other present mic branding is slightly more subtle. Okay, that's pretty much everything. After he packs, he takes a bit of time to look through his old stuff and look up the value of his All Might figures. Once he's done, he sees that about 2 hours have passed. He still has plenty of time before he meets with the League. He rocks on his heels for a moment before he decides to check on his mom. He closes the door behind him before walking towards her bedroom, his heart pounding in his throat as he opens the door. Mom! Midoriya Inko is lying in her bed, clearly asleep. Midoriya looks at the cluttered mess of a room before spotting something on the floor. He picks it up and realizes, as shards of glass get lost in the carpet, that it's a family picture. His father is included. He feels a pang of sympathy as he approaches the bed and pulls the crumpled blanket over her shoulder, careful not to wake her. He considers taking a nap before his stomach growls, reminding him that he's barely eaten in the past few days. Also, he definitely needs a shower. He heads to the kitchen and opens the fridge, gagging at the smell. He throws out large amounts of rotten produce and questionable leftovers. After he gets rid of everything that would definitely give him food poisoning, he concludes there's nothing decent. He opens the freezer, glad that the smell isn't as bad. He digs through freezer before finding a microwave meal that isn't completely freezer burnt and a single ice cream bar. He opens the ice cream to eat while the food heats up, eating the thing quickly to try and satisfy some of his hunger. He tosses the wrapper in the trash and decides to take a shower while he waits. He grabs a shirt and a pair of jeans from his room and steps into the bathroom. He turns the water as hot as it goes, letting the water run for a moment as he strips out of his ruined clothes. He tests the water with his hand and hisses as it burns his skin, adjusting the temperature. Once he's satisfied, he enters, his muscles relaxing as he's pelted with warm water. He pours some body wash into his hand and starts scrubbing at the dry blood on his skin, watching it go down the drain. Once his body is clean, he starts on his hair, making sure to focus on the clumps matted together with blood. He lets himself relax for a few more minutes before it turns slightly cold and he steps out of the shower. His uniform is covered in blood and grime, no point bringing it with him. He's not going back to school anyways. He changes into the outfit he grabbed before his shower and then wipes at the mirror, foggy from the shower. He brushes his teeth and hair before leaving the bathroom, finally feeling clean. He opens the microwave and grabs a fork that looks clean, practically inhaling each bite. It's not good, but he's so hungry that he doesn't really care. He startles as he hears a loud knock at the front door. Only Bakugo knocks that violently. He unlocks the door and raises an eyebrow slightly as the blonde glares at him. Deku, what the F is going on with you? He shoves past Midoriya and storms into the house uninvited. He looks around, obviously disgusted. Why is this place such a dump? I thought you were taking care of it. Midoriya rolls his eyes and glances at the clock. It's almost time, he can deal with Bakugo for a little bit. He gestures for the boy to follow him to his room and sits on the edge of his bed. Bakugo looks at the All Might merch and packed bag with a skeptical, confused expression. I'm leaving, Bakugo. He speaks after a minute, not in the mood for small talk. I'm leaving and I'm probably not coming back. Not for a long time. Bakugo is silent for once. I'll be safe though. I'm going to be treated better than I am here. He shrugs and stares down at the floor. Bakugo is still silent, oddly enough. Then the blonde furrows his brow in irritation and bares white teeth as his lips pull back. Midoriya braces himself for a burning pain. Instead, Bakugo simply stands in front of him and crosses his arms. What the hell do you think you're doing, Deku? If you think you can run away and become a hero, you've got another thing coming. A series of popping sounds echoes in the room as his palms spark. Midoriya can't help but laugh, his eyes watering as he does. Bakugo falters as Midoriya's soft laugh raises into a cackle. There's nothing funny about the situation, but something about it makes Midoriya want to laugh anyways. He doesn't remember the last IME he actually laughed. It feels good. The F is so funny, nerd. The vortex that forms in his room starts small, but quickly becomes impossible to ignore. Midoriya grabs his bag and stands. Oh, Bakugo. The portal opens wider as Bakugo continues to stare at it. I already told you you're right, I'll never be a hero. The words are laced with slight bitterness, but it fades quickly. But that doesn't mean I'm going to take your advice, you know. He already did, and it wasn't a great experience. The portal is wide enough for him to go through now. He turns back one more time before he steps through, a condescending smile on his face. I've got somewhere to be. It's been fun talking, we should do it again sometime. The warp closes before Bakugo can grab him. Midoriya shivers as he arrives in the League's base again, mostly due to the strange feeling of the portal. He's glad Bakugo didn't follow him, it would be a pain to explain all of this, and the League would definitely not be as welcoming to the explosive boy. Sorry I grabbed so much stuff, I didn't want to risk leaving anything important behind, he says as he unzips his bag and pulls out the stack of notebooks. He adjusts his grip and sets them down on a nearby table, making sure the stack won't fall and create a mess. That's most of them, they should be the ones with actually useful information. Good, leave them there for now, Shigaraki replies. You can put the rest of your stuff in the spare room next to Toga's. Midoriya mumbles a thanks before grabbing his bag and finding the room. It's right next to Toga's overly decorated door, colorful items covering the wood. He opens the door and sets his bag down, glancing around. There's a bed with a sheet and blanket, a few shelves and a desk with some drawers. It's not as big as his old room, but it's not horribly small either. He drops his bag on the bed and starts putting some of his items around the room. His laptop, headphones, and some clothes are soon placed around the room. The rest of his stuff can stay in his bag for now, no need to pull everything out. He exits, closing the door behind him. When he enters the other room again, he's immediately grabbed by Toga. Okay, now that Zuko is gonna stay with us, we should all do introductions. She grins widely before she backs up a few steps and sticks a hand out in front of her. You already know that I'm Toga Himiko. My quirk is transform. It allows me to turn into another person after I consume their blood. I can copy someone down to the tiniest detail, including their voice. I can't copy personalities or anything though. She pouts a bit at the end, then looks over the crowd again. Okay, Shigaraki next. The man looks up with an irritated groan, but eventually he gives in. Shigaraki Tamura. My quirk is decay. It's exactly what it sounds like. As an example, he grabs an empty glass and wraps it in all 5 fingers. The glass turns to dust in seconds, leaving a small pile on the bar. Midoriya shivers as he imagines himself in place of the inanimate object. His quirk seems powerful but dangerous. Luckily, he seems good at controlling it. Maybe, once they trust him more, he can do some experiments with all of them. Make Frankenstein go next, he's being angsty in the corner. The patchwork man glares at Shigaraki. Toga nudges him and he rolls his eyes. Midoriya wonders what happened to cause those scars. Name's Dabi. My quirk is cremation. A small blue flame forms in the man's palm before he extinguishes it. He doesn't say anything else, so Midoriya makes a few assumptions before nodding his head. The rest are off doing something stupid, so Crazy's introduction party will have to wait for a bit. Midoriya catches a glance of the page Shigaraki is looking at and walks over. His notes on Endeavor are admittedly harsh. He's never been a fan of the man, too many civilian injuries, too large of an ego, too focused on overtaking All Might. He seems to value being number one more than being a good hero, which is what Midoriya really hates. The man seems quite rude as well, from what he's observed. He's probably a good target. He sits on the counter and lets his legs dangle. I don't know how Endeavor is the number 2 hero. He values fame and power way more than helping people. He catches Dabi staring at him, but the man looks away before he can comment on it. You probably can't kill him without causing a big scene, but I've got a ton of his weaknesses written down, and I might have made a plan to ruin his career, but I never went through with it. He points at a list, followed by a few paragraphs. This part is a bit biased, but I guess I can't be objective all the time. A career-ruining plan? You really hate this guy. Shigaraki smirks as he looks over to the weaknesses. So he's your All Might, then, he mumbles. Have you ever met him? Midoriya tilts his head slightly. He's never gotten up close to an Endeavor fight, too worried about injuries. Even on TV and the internet, he finds them hard to watch all the way through. There's usually a lot of screaming in the background, plus he can only look at Endeavor's ugly facial hair for so long. He shakes his head slightly once he finishes thinking. Nah, but I've watched a lot of hero fights online. His are difficult to sit through, but I've tried to gather as much information as possible. The next page is about his fighting style more in depth, by the way. Shigaraki's hand-covered face turns away from his after a second of silence. Honestly, I've always been interested in the other heroes more than him, so his information is a bit lacking. Shigaraki mumbles something like, detailed enough, as Midoriya hops off the counter. I should unpack the rest of my stuff, but feel free to ask any questions about those. No, but I've watched a lot of hero fights online. His are difficult to sit through, but I tried to gather as much information as possible. The next page has in-depth information about his fighting style, by the way. Shigaraki turns away after a second of silence. Honestly, his information is probably a bit lacking. He's never been a hero that I really like, so I did the bare minimum for him. Then again, the bare minimum for him is still quite a lot for other people. I should finish unpacking. Feel free to ask any questions about those. Toga watches him leave, already forming her newest plan. Toga Himiko is smarter than she seems, so she thinks she knows exactly what Midoriya is hiding. Sharp smiles a bit too wide to be genuine and a dullness to the green of his eyes. He's obviously been through some stuff. Toga still remembers the thrilling sight of seeing him covered in his own blood, if he's so willing to stay with a random group of villains that found him after a suicide attempt. So she's determined to make him feel like one of them. She likes the other members, they're the type of family she never had before, but Midoriya is the only one that's her age. So, clearly, they need to bond over typical teenager stuff. She hums excitedly as she walks down the street. Disguising herself as a random woman is easy, and the person she's disguised as is rich. Last time she managed to make a rich person bleed, she had bought something cool for the entire league. This person has less money, but it's more than enough to get Toga all that she needs. The store is pretty busy, but Toga's disguise doesn't stand out all that much and nobody pays that much attention to her as she swiftly grabs a cart and makes her way towards the aisle she wants to visit first. She doesn't know what movies Midoriya likes, she's just gonna grab a bunch. She picks out a few of her favorites, all bloody horror movies or twisted romance, and a few things she thinks Midoriya might enjoy, a bit less bloody. She remembers watching these movies before she got her quirk. Being a villain isn't a typical teenage hobby, so she's not sure what else to get. She ends up picking up a few things of nail polish and a variety of random snacks, since Midoriya hasn't mentioned anything in particular that he enjoys. She makes a mental note to ask him stuff like that tonight. She's already got a space set up for the two of them, all she has to do is get back to the base. She wants to shoplift, but she's got a lot of stuff and it seems like more of a hassle than it's worth. It's not like she's using her money anyways, so it doesn't really impact her in the long run. She pays and then leaves with 2 heavy bags hanging from her arms. She lets her disguise drop when she's close to the base and slips in through the door. Midoriya is sitting at the bar looking at something on his phone. Oh, hi Toga. What do you have there? He asks as he points to the bags. She grins and drops the bags on the couch before she turns to him again. Well, since I've finally got someone my own age to hang out with, I figured we should take advantage of that. She gestures for him to follow her and chooses a spot on the couch before she opens a laptop. So, I bought a bunch of stuff for us. Midoriya's eyes brighten slightly, the shade of green becoming more vibrant as she pulls out a pile of movies. Okay, I don't know what kind of stuff you like, so I just grabbed a bunch of random options to choose from. Midoriya looks over them for a moment before his expression brightens even more. Toga can't help but notice that a childlike, excited look fits his features more than his usual reserved one. I used to watch this all the time with Kachin and my mom before. He trails off and shakes his head. Toga glances at the cover. Some movie about a girl with really, really long hair and a frying pan. Odd, but she could think of worse ways to spend her time. And then you can choose the next one, so it's fair. She nods and slips the disc into the DVD drive. They'll probably be able to get a few movies in, so that's a decent amount of time to talk about the stuff she's been wondering about. She grabs the nail polishes next, black, red and green. I got these and some snacks just in case. The green matches his eyes and hair, the exact reason she got that shade. The snacks are mostly because she was hungry while shopping, but also because Midoriya looks frail, like he hasn't eaten properly in a long time. Midoriya nods as the movie starts, the opening narration playing from the computer speakers. Midoriya looks calm, so she's going to consider this a success so far. She doesn't remember much about this movie, but she does know there's some blood at the end, so she's excited for that bit. They're a little less than halfway through when Midoriya looks over at her, a shared bag of chips open between them. Hey Toga? Why did you become a villain in the first place? She adjusts her position slightly and stares at the ceiling for a second, pulling her knees to her chest. Why she became a villain, huh? She thinks that's a decent starting point. Sorry if that's a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Midoriya's hands wave frantically. He doubts himself a lot, odd for someone with such impressive skills. Nah, it's not really personal, she shrugs. People didn't like me after I developed my quirk, they thought I was weird and creepy. She catches a flash of understanding in his eyes. I want to make this world an easier place to live in. I don't trust heroes to do it, so I found these guys. Midoriya nods, slowly, as some random song starts playing from the movie. What about you, Zuko? What made you stick around with us? He blinks before he glances down at his hands and chews on his bottom lip. After a moment, his tense shoulders relax. Well, it's not exactly the same reason, but people thought I was quirkless for a long time. They didn't treat me well. I'll go more in depth at some point with the rest of you here, but I wasn't very popular. I tried to jump because a lot of things got built up. He looks down at his hand and clenches it into a fist. I don't hate heroes, but I don't like the way people see them and the way this whole world works. You guys that I haven't been here long, but this is the most accepted I've felt in a long time. I know it's illogical, but you guys make me feel that kind of safe. Aw, Aizu. She grins and wraps her arms around him. He tenses for a second before relaxing and almost melting into the affection. The thought of him not having any sort of affection shown to him makes her sad, so she pulls away. Green? She asks and he nods while she unscrews the cap. He sticks out his hand and she paints his nails with practice strokes. They talk as she paints, a variety of topics like their previous home lives and favorite foods. It's basic, she knows, but it helps her get a better grasp on Midoriya's interests and hobbies, so it's worth it. Once she finishes, he does hers in a variation of black and blood red. It's messy, but it's almost perfect compared to Shigaraki's work. She still doesn't know how the guy manages to stain so much skin with such a small brush. They manage to get through a few more movies, a mix of animations and pre-Quirk era horror, before they both get tired. It seems like too much of an annoyance to move from the couch, so it's going to have to do. Midoriya is against the back of the furniture with Toga practically clinging to him, a mess of tangled limbs and messy hair as they both drift off. They'll be sore in the morning, but that's fine. And if anyone tries to tease them about it, well, Toga has told Midoriya about her vast, impressive collection of knives and other sharp objects that are hidden in almost every room. Shigaraki walks through the door and turns when he hears noise. Usually everyone is asleep by now, except maybe Dabi on his more insomnia-fueled nights. He approaches and sees the noise is the repeating music from the menu of a pre-Quirk movie. Toga and Midoriya are both on the couch, clearly asleep, limbs wrapped around each other in a way that gives him a headache at the thought of even trying to detangle them. With an exaggerated sigh, he turns the device off and drapes a spare blanket over the two of them. He reminds himself that it's not because he cares. That blanket was in his way, and with the dropping temperatures Toga will complain all morning if she winds up cold and sore. He especially doesn't pay attention to the way both of them look so young, too young to be in this sort of place. He slips into a seat at the bar beside Dabi and rubs his temple. "Those two make me feel old. Like I'm gonna break a hip or something," he mumbles. The other man looks over at him and rolls his eyes. "You're 20, I think you'll live." Midoriya wakes up at 3:30 a.m., groggy and just slightly too warm due to his position. With careful movements he untangles himself from Toga and stands. The room is dark, but he manages to navigate back to his room to grab a jacket. He knows it's not normal to take a walk at 3 in the morning, but something is compelling him to. He slips the jacket on and walks quietly out of the door, careful not to disturb anyone. It's cold outside, not quite sunrise, but he prefers the cold, slight darkness of the early morning. He pulls his phone out of his pocket and uses the flashlight to navigate his way down the street. His legs seemingly work on impulse alone as he turns corners and passes familiar buildings. He's not sure why he's doing this, but he does remind himself to remember his route and keep an eye on the time. The last thing he wants is to freak the others out when they wake up and find him missing. The streets are mostly empty except for a few people getting ready for early work shifts. He doesn't pay much attention to them and they seem to ignore him as well. Good, he doesn't want to stop to have meaningless small talk with a stranger. He's still tired, but his mind is starting to clear up. He wishes he brought some of his money. A few places are open and he could really go for something to drink. The familiar entrance of the school makes him pause. What if someone sees him? His mother probably hasn't reported him as missing, so the teachers will probably think he just ditched for a few days. But it is a Sunday, and it's early enough that nobody is out here yet. Besides, it feels anticlimactic to walk all the way here and then walk off because he's worried about being noticed. With a sharp inhale, he moves forwards and finds his way up to the roof again. A bit of climbing later, he sets foot on the roof and sighs. The rapid beating of his heart calms down a bit. Last time he didn't really appreciate the view until he was already on the ground, so he sits on the railing. The darkness makes it hard to make out details, but it feels nice. It's cold, but not that unpleasant cold that makes his nose run and his limbs shake. He tightens his grip on the rail and lets his legs swing. He has no intentions of falling this time, he just wants to not think about how he got into his current situation. Just a few minutes of fresh air, and then he's going to head back before he worries any of the others. The sound of footsteps makes him freeze and he glances behind him. "Any particular reason you're up here so early, kid?" Midoriya's brain is split into halves of "oh my god, Eraserhead" and "oh sheet, Eraserhead." It's not like he can tell a hero that he jumped off this building and joined a bunch of villains because his quirk doesn't let him die. Worst case scenario is the League being found and arrested, or something. And besides, he reasons, there's nothing wrong with stretching the truth to somebody he's never going to meet again. Eraserhead probably has better things to worry about than some kid on a school roof, especially because Midoriya has no intentions of jumping off this time. "Just thinking," he shrugs. "What are you doing up here, homeless dude?" Okay, so he knows who it is, but there's no harm in playing around with him a little bit. He's going to bring one of his notebooks if he ever does this again, maybe get an autograph on his page about Eraserhead. The man's expression is mostly hidden by his scarf and his yellow glasses, but he still seems slightly on edge. "Relax, I'm not going to jump this time, I'm just taking a moment to consider some stuff." He gestures to his tight grip on the railing. "If I was gonna jump I would have done it before you arrived." "What do you mean, again? Have you thought about it before?" He supposes he can't be upset that his death was never publicized if he got up and walked away from it. He stares back at the sky and lets the corners of his lips curl up as Eraserhead approaches, leaning on the rail. The man seems tired, but Midoriya supposes that comes with being the type of hero he is. He's always kind of admired him, but he's not gonna start gushing right away, that'd ruin the fun of it. Kid. Right? He's probably being worryingly silent, and he doesn't want to be taken somewhere where he's gonna be even further from the league space. A few times. When I attended here I wasn't very popular, everyone thought I was quirkless. Hell, I thought I was quirkless. He adds. He doesn't need to dive into his trauma, but he can give a few sparing details. Everyone told me that I was useless, and that I'd never be a hero, he huffs out a laugh. I guess they were right, my quirk isn't useful enough to be a hero. Having to die to activate his quirk makes it dangerous to use during battle, and it's not flashy like Bakugo's or All Might's. Then again, I guess I owe it to this place for helping me discover my quirk. What's your quirk? Eraserhead asks, and he hops off the rail so he can lean over and point down at the sidewalk. It's too dark to see it, but he knows it's still not fully faded away. It's kind of a piece of history to him now, the day he met the league and someone finally recognized his talent. Eraserhead is looking down, although it's clear that he doesn't really see anything. Not getting what you're saying, kid? Well, he's going to have to spell it out then. At least he can voice a few questions about it. He hasn't had a chance to test it out while with the league. You've seen that blood on the sidewalk, right? A nod, that's mine. He freezes, clearly confused. One of my classmates told me to take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in my next life, and I took his advice. He laughs, although it's not fully amused, a bit too sharp for that. I didn't have to be reincarnated, though. I woke up after a bit and I was, well, alive. Obviously. He stretches his arms out. My guess is that it heals my injuries, but only large or life-threatening ones. It hasn't healed any of the bruises I have, so it can't be a full healing quirk. You seem like a smart kid though. Even if you thought you were quirkless, didn't you have anyone on your side? Eraserhead asks. He's put his capture weapon away, so he probably believes Midoriya when he says he's not going to jump off again. I mean the teachers, or a friend, or your parents? Midoriya laughs again, bitter. He leans against the rail and stares up at the sky. It's starting to lighten, he probably has to leave after he finishes this conversation. Eraserhead doesn't know who his mother is, so there's no harm in telling him about some of his family life, he just won't give away his name. Nah, my dad left when I was diagnosed quirkless. I have an extra joint in my small toe, which usually means someone won't manifest a quirk. And then my mom kind of just got shut down. It was like living by myself with someone wandering around the house sometimes. My only friend was probably one of the worst ones when it came to harassing me about my quirklessness, and the teachers either ignored it, blamed me, or joined in. Eraserhead tenses at that. Although, I guess that's the only other thing I can thank this hellhole for. A group of people found me after I jumped, and they've treated me the best I've been treated in a long time. He smiles, and then pulls his phone out of his pocket to check the time. He swears and jolts upright. Sheet. Speaking of them, they're going to be waking up soon and I don't want to worry them. He walks over to his escape route and then pauses. With a sheet-eating grin, he turns. It was nice talking, Eraserhead. He snickers and leaps down before the hero can say anything else, disappearing into the darkness below. He reminds himself, again, to ask the man some questions about his quirk if they ever see each other again. Hopefully without the league. That would raise way too many questions and he'd be hesitant to give him any information if he was working with a group of dangerous villains. Aizawa stares at the spot where the kid with green hair stood just a moment before. The kid was clearly smart, with his analysis of his quirk and his knowledge of Eraserhead despite him being an underground hero. He sighs and rubs his temple. He's too tired to think about this right now. All he wants to do is get back home and persuade his husband to stay in bed for another hour or two. Maybe pet their cats for a bit before he has to get up and actually do things and get ready for the rest of the day. He really needs some coffee. Mentions of suicide baiting/suicide attempt, bullying, physical/mental abuse, neglect, semi-detailed injury. Honestly, everything that comes with Midoriya's quirkless past and his middle school. Midoriya enters through the door and is almost immediately tackled by Toga. Zuku! She yells loud enough that he winces and clenches his When I woke up you were gone, and nobody could find you. A pang of guilt jolts through him. He didn't want to worry any of them but he did anyways. What happened? She looks him in the eyes and he rubs the back of his head with a nervous smile. Toga's grip on him is tight, so he's probably not going to escape this unless he tells her. He's still a little excited from his encounter with Eraserhead, so it takes a second to collect his thoughts. Nothing happened. I just woke up and went for a walk earlier this morning to clear my thoughts. Sorry for worrying you. Seemingly satisfied, Toga releases him from the elongated hug. He's trying to regain a bit of feeling in his body when 4 fingers land on his head and ruffle his already messy hair. He looks up and sees Shigaraki, one of his brows raised and some sort of controller in his hand. He doesn't have anything hiding his face, and he looks more normal than Midoriya thought he would, besides really dry skin and a few scars. The blue-haired man pulls back and shoves his hand into his pocket before he speaks. Don't go running off on your own, brat. There's no real malice in the nickname, Midoriya quickly figures out, so he doesn't mind it. Now come on, I'm about to beat Toga's butt in Mario Kart. Toga yells out a protest about how she's going to beat him this time and Midoriya smiles as he trails after the two of them. Dabi is already in the room, and he can spot Kurogiri at the bar, where he usually is. Besides them, he sees the man in the black and white suit he's met once or twice before and someone in a mask he doesn't quite recognize. Alright, you've seen twice before, and this is Mr. Compress. He gestures to each person respectively and Midoriya waves. The man Shigaraki introduced as Twice approaches first. It's great to meet you. No, it's not. He's sticking out a hand, so Midoriya shakes it with a bit of hesitation. Toga whispers something about getting used to it as the other person approaches him. He's tall and most of his features are hidden, but Midoriya surprisingly doesn't find himself very intimidated. The man has one of his hands clasped around something that Midoriya can't see, and the other positioned under his chin as he seems to observe the young teen. You must be our newest member. Kurogiri showed us some of your work. It is truly impressive. Midoriya's face goes from a somewhat pale color to a vibrant shade of red as he shrugs and stumbles on his words as he tries to downplay his talent. Don't be humble, your work is comparable to someone with a powerful analysis quirk. Midoriya grins wide at that. He's always been told his notes were weird, or creepy, not interesting. Here, hold out your hand. He does so and feels something smooth and cool land in his palm. He looks down and sees a marble, a pretty shade of blue and slightly shiny, resting on his hand. Consider it a gift. Whoa, thank you, sir. Shigaraki rolls his eyes and brushes past them before taking a seat on the couch, holding the controller in a practiced grip that doesn't decay it from his touch. Dabi is sitting beside him, with Compress and Toga on one side and Midoriya and Twice on the other. If you told a past Midoriya Izuku he was going to be sitting around with a bunch of villains, watching two of them argue over Mario Kart, then he'd probably call you crazy, but now it feels oddly normal. Sort of family-like. Shigaraki seems to be more practiced than Toga, but she seems determined to beat him. Alright, Toga, you remember the arrangement, right? Shigaraki asks before they start the first match. You win, you get to stab Dabi for a whole week. The dark-haired man glares at him but mostly gets ignored. I win, you can't stab any of us. Well, besides Twice, he's probably fine with getting stabbed. Twice flashes a thumbs up and Toga beams at him before adjusting her grip. She nods and the game starts. Midoriya hasn't played much, his mother never really got him games, but he catches on pretty quick. They're a few minutes in before the commentary starts. Wow, Toga, you fucking CK at this. Toga juts out her bottom lip. No, I don't. You're just some sort of nerd who hides away in his dark room instead of talking to people. That's why you're so good. Shigaraki doesn't respond as he easily passes her. His focus doesn't slip and Midoriya finds himself engaged as he watches their characters attack each other. Toga ends up losing that round, but she wins the next. Followed by Shigaraki winning again, then Shigaraki for a best out of 5. I can't believe you beat me again. She leans back and pouts. If Twice wasn't around I'd probably starve to death. You're such a d-. Shigaraki is fiddling with his controller and he shrugs as he glances up at her again. Maybe you should practice some before you challenge me, wannabe vampire. She throws one of her knives at him and he ducks. The blade clatters to the floor and Toga sinks into the couch with a whine of defeat. Midoriya makes a mental note to ask her about her knives again. He wants to make a list of them for personal safety and he counted maybe 15 personalized blades in the kitchen alone, not adding in the normal knives used for food. He's pretty sure she's got more in this room too, but he wants to wait and see where they are. I'm still bored. Wanna do a few rounds of another game? Toga considers it, tapping a finger to her chin, before she nods and selects a fighting game Midoriya hasn't heard of from the pile of cases in front of them. They're about 10 minutes into the new game, one that Toga is a bit better at, before Dabi turns to him. Hey Midoriya? Midoriya looks over and tilts his head slightly. Why'd you jump? The room stills for a second, both Shigaraki and Toga's characters stopping on the screen. There's a moment of almost disturbing calm before Shigaraki reaches over to smack him on the back of the head with the controller. The man dodges before the hit can land and takes the controller before Shigaraki can decay it on accident. Midoriya watches silently, trying to collect his thoughts. What the F dash, Frankenstein? You can't just randomly ask that sheet. Shigaraki's eyes narrow slightly as the game continues on in the back. Midoriya tries to focus on the unfamiliar but oddly catchy music that drones on instead of the weird feeling in his stomach. He should tell them, at least he thinks he should. If he's going to stay here, he can't just leave that open forever. Look, you F'd the kid up. Shigaraki gestures to him and Dabi gives him an unreadable expression. Midoriya clears his throat and sits up, letting the marble roll between his hands. No, it's fine. I guess I have to tell you guys about this stuff at some point if I'm gonna work with you. He swallows the lump in his throat. So, I was diagnosed quirkless when I was really young. There's this thing where if you have an extra joint in your small toe, it's pretty much evidence that you're not going to develop a quirk. I guess the reason that they never noticed mine was because of that, or the fact that I only recently discovered it myself, and it activated when I was pretty much dying. He shakes his head. He can analyze his quirk later. Anyways, I don't know how much you guys know about how our world treats the small amount of quirkless people, but hideout wasn't very popular. Understatement of the century, he scoffs internally. I had this friend way before I was diagnosed. We basically grew up together. I followed him everywhere. After I was told I'd never have a quirk, he started kind of hating me. He started calling me Deku instead of my real name. He got this really flashy, powerful quirk and, well, he liked to test it on me. He rolls up his sleeve to show the starburst scars on his shoulders and upper arms. And, he wasn't really the worst part. A lot of the other students were just as bad as him. His arms seem to ache even though he knows the scars he has are years old and basically completely healed. They left red spider lilies on my desk, sometimes. Not that often. Maybe every other week. He remembers collecting them in a pretty vase and setting them near his window, staring at them occasionally while doing his homework and wondering. And they carved stuff into my desk, usually just threats or insults. Some of them used their quirks to make them really stand out. Staring at the words that made the surface of his desk dip unevenly, taunting him and looping in his mind. Some of them used their quirks on me, to practice. One time someone with a quirk that gave them claws tested the sharpness on me. They drew a lot of blood, but my mom wouldn't take me to the hospital, so I dealt with them myself. He rolls up his breathed leg to show 4 deep gashes in the skin of his leg. Still don't know if they healed right. What about your mom? Why wouldn't she take you? Midoriya shrugs at Dabi's question. My dad left when he found out I was quirkless. He hated me for not being useful and he hated my mom for producing a weak child. She kind of shut down after that, I guess? It was like living with some sort of ghost. She barely spoke to me. The TV screen suddenly turns black and everyone glances over at Shigaraki. The man is scratching at his neck, the other hand gripping tightly onto the side of the controller as he stares down at it. His lips are pressed into a thin line and his brow is furrowed, eyes slightly darker than usual. I feel. He mumbles as he grabs the hand that usually covers his face and fidgets with it slightly, still scratching at the side of his neck, like burning down a certain middle school. Midoriya's heart seems to stop in his chest. He's not serious, right? That's gotta be an expression. That thought is soon crushed when he reminds himself that he is surrounded by actual villains, not ones that just call themselves that and then play video games all the time. Shigaraki secures the object over his face and sets the controller down with a bit more force than needed. Midoriya's desperate cry of, "No," is drowned out by chants of agreement. "You cannot burn down my middle school because I was bullied." It's not a normal sentence, but considering Midoriya's circumstances, it's not all that shocking to him. "Aizu, we're villains, we can do pretty much anything we want." Toga grins. "Besides, don't you want to see the pretty blood of those pathetic teachers stain the floors red?" Part of him wants to scream that nobody deserves that they can deal with this in a very rational way that involves. What does this usually involve? Lawyers? Do these guys even have lawyers? But a smaller, vocal part of him whispers that yes, he does want the people who stood by and watched as he was burned and suicide baited and tormented to feel how he did. You can't just barge into this, you know. He settles by Shigaraki and pulls out an old sketch of the layout of the school. It's rather complex. He made it during his free time there when he wasn't being attacked. "I don't want any students to be hurt. Everyone who harassed me has already left that place except the teachers. The kids attending now don't have anything to do with this, but he knows only 1 or 2 of his previous teachers have settled down and retired due to social media updates from them and the school itself. The best time to go would be 6 or 7 at night. They hold tutoring sessions for basic subjects and Quirk usage, but they end at 5:30. The teachers stay another hour or 2 to do paperwork and stuff. Most of his memorization comes from hiding in empty classrooms as the worst of his tormentors leave, and then dodging teachers who automatically saw the weird quirkless kid after hours and assumed he was up to no good. Where's the best place to enter? Compress asks, and Midoriya glances down at the drawing. The front entrance will be too obvious. There's a back door here, he points, and here. I'd say the first one is better because it's got less rooms around it, so it's less likely we'll be automatically spotted. He rubs the back of his neck. There are alarms, but they're kind of faulty. They barely went off half the time. If I can mess with the wiring a bit, I can probably solve that problem. It's like the majority of his brain takes over again because he shakes his head and backs away. But we are not burning it down. Do you know how much trouble we could get in if we do that with people inside? He runs a hand through his hair and bites down on his bottom lip. He can't go to jail. He's not cut out for jail. The others don't seem to pay him much thought as they continue making a route using his drawing, muttering tips or arguing over certain stages of the plan. Great, he thinks sarcastically, they're not even listening to me. Midoriya slumps his shoulders as he listens to the others talk, slightly muffled as he zones out. He comes back to Toga poking his cheek repeatedly and gently pushes her hand away. You said it was all of your teachers, right? We need names. Dabi says once it's clear he's focused again. Midoriya rolls his eyes and writes down every name he can remember, a rather long list. Dabi looks it over and nods slightly before he mumbles something to Shigaraki. The blue-haired man scratches slightly at his neck before he stands and turns to exit the room, face obscured by that same odd hand that the teen has slowly grown used to seeing. Midoriya sighs and grabs one of his dark hoodies and the Eraserhead scarf from his room. He wants to protect his face, sue him. Besides, Shigaraki likes Eraserhead, thinks he's cool, so it's whatever. Once he's got his stuff ready, a flashlight and his darkest clothes, he checks the time. It's 5:30, so he's got maybe an hour and a half to regret every life choice that's led up to this moment. He falls into his bed and hides his face in his hands with a groan. His heart is already racing, despite the fact nothing has happened yet. He doesn't know why spilling his guts to a bunch of villains seemed like a good choice, maybe because he trusts them. It's funny to say that he trusts a bunch of people planning to burn down a middle school more than the woman who raised him, but hey, sometimes shit just turns out like that. He wastes the rest of his free time listening to music and reading some random article about Best Jeanist's latest battle. He's only aware that the time has passed when Shigaraki knocks on the door. You better be awake, brat, we're leaving. He slips on the hoodie and scarf and slips his phone into his pocket before he sighs and opens the door. You look like Eraserhead's even more tired love child. Good enough, come on. Midoriya follows after him. The others are dressed in their usual attire, and Toga takes one look at the jacket and scarf combo Midoriya has and grins wide, showing off sharp teeth as she surges forwards and pokes him in the chest with raised eyebrows. Dabi takes one look at her and gets a knowing look on his face as she giggles. Oh, an Eraserhead fan? Maybe Shiggy will show you his secret closet. Shrine. She leans in. It smells like vanilla in there. He has merch that I didn't know existed, she whispers. Midoriya coughs to keep from laughing as Shigaraki swears at her and she laughs, dodging his 4 outstretched fingers and slipping behind twice back to hide. Her chin settles on his shoulder and she sticks her tongue out. Shigaraki grumbles under his breath as they follow after him. Toga is talking with Twice about something, Compress is going over the plan with Dabi, and Shigaraki is leading. Midoriya wonders if he can just book it and hide. No, too risky. He occasionally snaps out of his terrified thoughts to tell Shigaraki about a different path that's less likely to get them spotted, or add more information to something Toga is talking about. He feels sweaty, even though he's still kind of cold despite his thick hoodie and scarf. He fidgets with the soft, smooth fabric of the merchandise as the group continues to walk. He knows, just by a simple glance up, that they're getting closer. By the time he can see the outline of the building in front of them, he feels like he might vomit or cry. Maybe a little bit of both. Well, unless you jumped from an identical roof, this is the place, Shigaraki announces. Midoriya swallows the lump in his throat. The building is mostly dark, the artificial lighting shut off for the day in every room except the ones the teachers are working in. It's so familiar, but it doesn't make him feel warm and fuzzy like watching an old favorite show does, or finding a favorite childhood book or toy. It makes his stomach churn and wrap itself into knots as he twists his fingers together. It's fine, he reassures himself. Maybe that someone will see us and chase us off and they'll forget this whole plan. It's a stupid thought. There's no way a civilian will be able to get the whole group away from the school. Maybe he thinks he should just let this happen. They let him suffer through all of that. They let Bakugo and his friends burn and scar him. Now that he knows he's not quirkless, he wants to rub it in their faces. He wants to show them that they were wrong about him and spit in their faces. A grin spreads over his face under the scarf. He wonders how many of them will try to apologize or beg. He doesn't know if he can forgive any of them, not when he thinks of the spider lilies and burnt desks. Just go with it, his thoughts whisper, and he doesn't argue. Dabi's arms engulf in bright blue fire and Midoriya shakes off the last of his nerves. They're really doing this. It's easy to navigate down the halls of the school. The layout hasn't changed much and, after a few close calls, they've already reached the floor where most of the offices are. Midoriya remembers these rooms from being called to them for cheating, scoring higher than Quirk students on his tests, or starting fights, not getting his face beaten in. The nameplates on each door match his list. We'll go in order, he mumbles as he looks down at the list of names. The first on the list, and the first office, is his principal. He's an older man, with gray hair and a quirk that makes him able to project his voice. He's not much of a threat, he's never been much of a fighter. Midoriya remembers he usually relied on the words of the teachers and students and never gave Midoriya a chance to explain himself. He tells the others the information he has before slowly, carefully opening the door. Hello? Who's there? His voice is raspy from years of smoking. Show yourself or I'll call for someone. Midoriya nods at Toga and she leans towards the old man. You don't want to do that. Toga lunges forwards and slashes her knife across his cheek. His eyes widen as blood beads on his skin due to the somewhat deep cut. Toga takes the chance to turn into him, a perfect replica, before she finishes him off by dragging the knife across his throat. Crimson pours over his pale skin and the dark fabric of his suit as his eyes dull. Midoriya shivers. He's never seen anyone die like this before. Toga, now disguised as the man, grins wide. It's odd, like his face isn't built for such an expression. Well, now that's out of the way. Midoriya nods and crosses his name off. The next office belongs to his old math teacher, a woman in her 30s with a quirk that allows her to change small aspects of her appearance, like her hair and eye color. A bit more dangerous due to age and self-defense training, but also naive. The door opens and she looks back. Today, her hair is a mix of teal and bright green, about chin length, and her eyes are their natural brown. Mr. Suzuki. What can I do for you, sir? Toga clears her throat and approaches the desk as Shigaraki slips behind the woman. Midoriya makes out vague small talk before a hand grasps her face. Almost automatically, her skin starts to disintegrate into dust, cracking and crumbling as it spreads from her face to her neck, all the way down until she is nothing but a layer of dust on the chair and floor. He crosses her name off the list as well. He writes notes on each quirk on the back of the paper. He wonders how much blood Toga needs as she kills off another teacher, white hair, maybe mid-20s, who screams bloody murder as the knife is buried into his chest. He hits something before he dies, but Midoriya shrugs it off with an uneasy feeling and a bit more caution as they go down the hall. He wonders how Mr. Compress Marbles work when he traps a stray worker. He wonders if gloves would work for Shigaraki, and if Dabi can fully control the temperature of his fire as they burn and decay two people. It was a coincidence the teacher who joined in on the spider lily trend had a guest, but a welcome surprise. Although, he finds out that burning flesh smells so bad he can almost taste it. Isn't this amazing, Aizu? This is what it's like really being a villain. The air smells like dust, blood and smoke, but it barely bothers him anymore. He thinks this is what revenge smells like, bitter but exhilarating. He paces down the hall, scratching off another name off the list. They're almost halfway done already, and Dabi and Shigaraki are talking about how they're gonna celebrate when they finish. Twice is animatedly adding to the conversation, contradicting himself on occasion. Toga links her arm with his as they walk towards the other few offices. Next time I'm gonna take you out with me. Then you'll know why I like blood so much. She giggles with a pink tint to her cheeks, a seemingly natural blush instead of a flustered one. A hand wraps over his mouth before he can ask about her quirk in detail and they duck around a corner. This, I'm sure. I went to check on Mrs. Tanaka and there was just dust. And something is burning, and Mr. Suzuki's office smells like blood but I can't get all the way I dash. A marble cuts her off as she's essing into it. Mr. Compress sighs and looks to the others. We need to be quick. We can block off the exits besides our own and let Dabi's quirk do the rest of the work. Shigaraki nods. Toga, Twice and Midoriya will handle the ones that way, and we'll do these ones over here. Meet outside when you finish, try to make it as quick as possible. Twice nods and salutes as Toga grins and waves her knife, letting her disguise drop. We'll go super fast. We're gonna take hours. Toga drags the two of them off and they start gathering objects for barricades. Once they're gathered, Midoriya notes there's a workshop on this floor they can use. Breaking down the door takes a bit of effort since Midoriya's quirk isn't very good for physical tasks and Toga's knife is better at slicing flesh than doors, but with Twice they eventually throw it open and grab a few stray tools and some more objects. He can hear another frantic voice coming their way. They need to be quick about this or his fears really are going to come true. Midoriya peeks around the corner and notices someone who does quirk counseling. A man with red hair who laughed in his face when he asked for extra help catching up. He grits his teeth and waits for him to disappear downstairs before motioning for the others to follow him out of the room. By the time they're done, the other group is waiting. Shigaraki scratches at his neck as he glances at the dark streets. They're calling the pros and the cops. Let's finish this. Dabi. The man ignites his arms again and casts his fire at the school. It quickly catches, flames cracking and popping as he extinguishes the flames on his body. Despite it being arson, and the building being full of corpses, Midoriya kind of thinks it's pretty. The fire is a pretty blue color that complements the dark color of the sky, a mix of shades combined together as it eats away at the structure. Nobody has gotten out yet, and it's unlikely many people will. Once there's a significant amount of commotion, likely from pros and police, Shigaraki waves the group over. Alright, we had our fun. Let's leave before we get effed over. 4 fingers place themselves on his back as one of Kurojire's portals opens. The group quickly starts to disappear through Shigaraki and Midoriya in the back. Something about his thought of, wow, this must look really suspicious to a pro, must trigger his seemingly endless bad luck because something wraps around his arm. He looks down and his eyes widen. Hideout knows that material. No, he must be imagining things. It's whatever, they're almost through anyways. If Eraserhead wants to lose his scarf, that's on him. Does he have extras? Midoriya internally shrugs. The answer is obvious, it'd be stupid to not have extras. As Shigaraki steps mostly through the scarf yanks and Midoriya loses his balance, he stumbles slightly and is immediately pulled away from the portal. His eyes widen as he struggles, his feet dragging uselessly on the ground as Shigaraki turns. He notices the one visible red eye widen as the leader reaches out to try and grab him, but he slips past 4 outstretched fingers. Midoriya's heart sinks as the cloth wound tightly around him pulls him further and further away, swearing internally as he tries to fight his way out of it. He's still got time, he can squeeze through. Shigaraki can. It closes. Midoriya is freaking the F out. He's surrounded by heroes, in front of a school burning with bright blue flames, blood splattered on his shirt and reaching out to where the portal was 5 seconds ago. Hey kid. He knows that voice, he definitely recognizes it even though he's panicking. He looks behind him and automatically recognizes Eraserhead, crouched down to his eye level. His hair isn't floating, so he realizes he's not using his quirk. His eyes are hidden by bright yellow goggles, but Midoriya can tell that he's concerned. He swallows the lump in his throat and opens his mouth to try and make up an excuse. Hey, it's all right. I know those villains tried to take you, but you're okay now. What? He thinks that he was being kidnapped? Well, he supposes that makes sense. A kid being led through a weird vortex by a group of villains. The League will be back for him at some point, all he has to do is stall for a little while. Yeah. Thanks for, grabbing me, Eraserhead. He grins at the hero. That was scary, I don't know where they were gonna take me. He thinks it should be worrying about how easy it is for him to lie to the hero, but he doesn't want to spiral into yet another crisis. The hero nods and stands before he says something to one of the police officers. Midoriya rocks on his heels as he feels for his phone. Good, he still has it. You got anywhere to go, kid? Sheet, does he? He can't just stay here and wait for the League to come back, and he doesn't want to go back to his own house, not when Bakugo is still probably lurking around. He can find a random alley to settle in, but it's going to be difficult for the League to track his location that way. He shrugs and stares down at his shoes, his shoulders hunched slightly. No, huh? He bites the inside of his cheek as the man glances at the school. Well, my husband told me to stop bringing home strays, but that probably just applies to cats. Midoriya fights the urge to laugh. He's definitely telling Shigaraki that Eraserhead is a cat person and married once this entire situation is over. You're married? He asks instead. Eraserhead nods and gestures for him to follow him away. Midoriya trails after the hero, only starting to ask questions when they're a decent distance away. Is your husband a hero, too? What's he like? How many cats did you bring back before he told you to stop? Eraserhead raises his goggles and looks at him for a second, and Midoriya starts to wonder if he's being annoying again before the corners of his lips upturn slightly and he turns his head again to focus on where they're going. Midoriya jumps slightly when he speaks. Trust me, if you know a lot about heroes then you'll know him when you see him. Or hear him rather. I brought back maybe 0.10, but most of them were given to our friends. We've got 2 right now. Midoriya doesn't realize he's muttering until Eraserhead's hand lands on his shoulder. So, what about that group of people you met? You can't stay with them? Midoriya blinks before he remembers that he told Eraserhead the bare minimum about his current situation. He clears his throat and shrugs before smiling slightly. Oh yeah, they had to leave for business reasons, but they'll be back at some point. He replies with a wave of his hand. Eraserhead nods and then approaches a normal-looking building. He unlocks the door and Midoriya follows him in. Immediately, a small, brown cat runs up to him. It looks young and it screams at Midoriya, reaching up to paw at his breathes. Midoriya reaches down to pet it on the head and it starts purring, rather loud for its size. Eraserhead sighs and scoops it up, holding it gently in his arms as he turns back to Midoriya. This is Missy, short for missile launcher, because my husband found that joke on the internet and decided it was his turn to name one. The man rolls his eyes as he sets her back on the floor. And Noodles is around here somewhere. He's probably sleeping in the closet again. The man locks the door and Midoriya takes the chance to slip his shoes off and walk further into the house. It's nice, but nothing fancy. He doesn't really know what he expected, but it's fitting for someone as low-key as Eraserhead. Hisashi, I have something to tell you. Midoriya is trying to figure out if he's ever heard that name before when a man with long, blonde hair steps out. His eyes widen. You're present, Mike, he squeaks out. Whoa, you're married to Eraserhead? I have so many questions. Like, how loud can you scream? Oh, and how long can you last? If your throat got messed up, would you still be able to use your quirk at all? Eraserhead's scarf wraps around his mouth and he gives the man an apologetic glance. Present Mike still seems slightly overwhelmed by the questions and he furrows his brows slightly at Eraserhead. I know you said no more strays, but the kid doesn't have anywhere to stay. He was at the scene of the fire I got called to. The villains were trying to take him through one of their portals. The least we can let him do is stay here for a bit until he has someone else to go with. Midoriya pointedly doesn't meet any of their gazes, fearing that somehow they'll be able to look in his eyes and tell that he's lying. There's a moment of silence before he feels a hand ruffle his wild green hair. He looks up and sees present Mike grinning at him. Wow, he's never been this close to any of his favorite heroes, and now he's having one touch his hair. Well then, little listener, glad to have you. Hey, cool, this is fine. I'm fine, he thinks, trying to calm his racing heart as the two adults mumble something to each other. We'll set up the guest room for you so you'll have something more comfortable than the couch. The cats might visit you, but they just like to cuddle most of the time. Midoriya nods. So, do you know what those villains wanted with you? It might help us find them. He's got to make up something believable without leading them to the league. He trusts them, at least a little, but they're still heroes who have a job to do. Well, I saw them outside of the school before the police and the heroes arrived, so they might have wanted to take me because I was a witness? That seems logical, right? The two men nod and then present Mike leaves to set up the room. Eraserhead sits on the couch and Midoriya takes a seat beside him. Missy climbs onto the couch and settles in the teen's lap as the news flicks onto the TV. A woman with neat brown hair is covering the story about his middle school, and Midoriya is somewhat surprised to see the fire is still going. He wonders how powerful Dabi's quirk is as the woman drones on and lists the deaths caused. Midoriya pulls his phone out and checks the battery. He's still got a solid 80%, so he should be able to keep it alive with a bit of conservation. He opens his texts and scrolls through his contacts. He finds Toga's number easily. The two had exchanged them one day after a 2 a.m. chat. He opens their messages and, after making sure Eraserhead is still distracted by the TV, starts typing out a message. He wants to make sure they know he's not dead, after all. Midoriya, hey Toga. Funny story, I'm kind of staying with Eraserhead, Arin. Midoriya takes a walk the day after he finds himself living with Eraserhead. Well, Aizawa, technically, since that's what the hero wants him to call him outside of hero work. It's strange knowing a hero's name, but it's also exciting that inner spark of fanboyish excitement in his chest. He's asked a lot of questions about their quirks already, and he's gotten answers for most of them. He hasn't been called annoying once, which is a welcome surprise. Outside the league, nobody seems to like his rambling. Speaking of his rambling, he's doing it until he collides with something firm. Well, more accurately, someone. The boy looks no older than him, with split hair in red and white and heterochromic eyes in gray and blue. There's a scar around one of his eyes, but otherwise his complexion is clear. Midoriya feels his face grow hot as he stumbles back. I'm really sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going. Are you okay? The boy's expression is carefully blank and unreadable, his lips set in a firm line and his eyes guarded. He rocks on his heels as he waits for an answer. He should probably just go, really. He's got places he wants to be and he's promised Eraserhead he's going to be back before it gets dark outside. I'm fine. The boy replies after a moment. Midoriya nods and starts walking again, only to find the boy is going in the same direction. No. Please no, not one of these situations, he silently begs the universe. The universe, in response, decides to spit on him. The dual-haired boy looks over at him and narrows his eyes slightly. a hint of emotion finally shining through them. Midoriya thinks they look pretty, nice colors that pop against the red and white, but he's not going to say that out loud. He's already made himself look stupid enough as it is. Are you following me? Midoriya almost chokes on his own spit at the question. Wto. We're just going to the same place? Or in the same direction? I guess we should make this a little bit less awkward, huh? I'm Midoriya Izuku, it's nice to meet you. He wonders how rude it would be to just run. Probably really rude. He's not going to make a move to escape until the other boy does. He gets another silent, icy stare that makes him want to phase into the ground and die before the boy turns back to watch the path, his brows furrowed slightly. Not much of a talker, Midoriya silently remarks to himself. That's fine, though, he's not going to force anything on a guy he met on the street. That's invasive and he honestly doesn't feel like being punched. Todoroki Shudo. Midoriya wrinkles his nose impulsively when he hears the last name. Like Endeavor's kid? His eyes widen slightly when he realizes how it came out. Shit, sorry. That sounded really rude. My bad. He hides his face behind a hand, fingers splayed out just enough so he doesn't trip and bust his face open. Although he probably deserves it for insulting Todoroki's dad right to his face. The longing to sink into the ground increases and he wonders if he can burn a hole into the concrete by staring hard enough at it. He pulls his hand away when he's sure his face isn't bright red and sends a glance to the other boy. His face hasn't changed much, surprisingly. Not a fan then? Midoriya hesitantly shakes his head. That makes two of us. Midoriya blinks. The phrase is muttered, but it's just loud enough for him to make out the words. He doesn't like his own dad? It makes sense to Midoriya that the number 2 hero would be a shitty father as well, but he can't just go around assuming things about people's home lives. Todoroki doesn't say anything after that until they reach the library. I've got to go. It was interesting talking to you. He passes the large doors and Midoriya exhales loudly. Interesting is definitely a word to describe it. He arrives at his own destination, a cafe with bright, pastel colors and a cat in the window, and tries to focus on not embarrassing himself any further. He comes back half an hour later, half-empty drink in hand and cat hair clinging to his breathes. Eraserzawa is sitting on the couch, staring at some sort of paperwork. Midoriya, he greets. The teen waves and sits beside him, trying not to freak out too much. He catches a glimpse of the phrase teacher and raises an eyebrow slightly, wrapping his lips around the straw of his tooth-rottingly sweet drink as the man writes his signature on one of the pages. Eraserhead's a teacher, huh? Well, isn't that interesting? He leans back and watches whatever random show is on the TV for a minute before he speaks, a hint of amusement in his voice. So, you're a teacher? Didn't think you were exactly the children type. The man raises an eyebrow before Midoriya waves his free hand. No offense, it's just you're an underground hero, so not many know about you or the work you do. And with your personality, I would have expected you to stay away from jobs like this that involve a lot of meeting with people and helping students. He shrugs after he cuts off his muttering, a sheepish grin on his face. Aizawa sighs before turning the page and scanning over the writing on it. Midoriya can't make out half of the legal terms. He's never been good at stuff like that, but he can figure out a few phrases. I'm usually not, but I've been teaching at UA for a while and it's been a decent job. I've expelled a lot of students, though. Hopefully this next group will actually have the potential needed to become heroes. Midoriya tilts his head slightly. If Aizawa has expelled that many students, then surely he's only choosing the ones that can be real heroes, right? Not corruptible, arrogant ones who think they can get by with flashy quirks. He leans back and closes his eyes, letting himself collect his thoughts for a minute before he opens them again and asks another question. I've always wondered what it was like there. My quirk isn't cut out for heroics and before recently didn't know I had one, so I've never applied for a spot. He shrugs. He was going to, eventually, maybe after Bakugo got in so he could avoid him, but things happened. He's not upset about it, though. He got something more personal than a spot in a fancy hero school. Even if it's a fancy hero school he really, really wants to see. Another quick scribble of pen before the corner of Aizawa's lips upturn, just enough to be visible. You want to see it yourself? Midoriya eagerly nods. He's not interested in joining himself, but the school could provide information for the league, and he can figure out who's in the class Aizawa is teaching. He won't be surprised if Bakugo is there, maybe Todoroki too. Endeavor would probably enroll his son in the best hero school in Japan, after all. He's not sure who else to expect. All Might doesn't have any children and he's not familiar enough with any other hero children. Well, Hisashi and I are both working there, so unless you want to stay here then you'll probably be coming with us. Midoriya blinks at him, surprised. Really, are you sure you want me to come? He asks, his heart beats rapidly in his chest as he fidgets with his shirt sleeves. He doesn't think he's going to fit in at UA, and having a random kid trail after Eraserhead and Present Mic like a lost puppy will draw attention. Besides, once the league has a plan to get him back it might happen at UA, and won't that be an awkward conversation to have? He's looking forward to seeing the others again, just not actually having to explain to the heroes that surprise, the kid you've been taking care of is working with the villains. We already talked to Nizu, he said it's fine to bring you. Besides, it'll be a learning experience for you. Children your age need socialization, right? That's what Hisashi keeps saying. He shrugs and leans back to make room for the cat that jumps onto his lap and settles there for another nap, and Midoriya takes the chance to slip off to his temporary room. He closes the door behind him and sighs, settling at his desk and pulling his phone out to open his texts. He has a few people to update. He's not freaking out, he's irritated. Irritated that such a simple plan went so wrong, and that heroes can't mind their own business, and irritated that he can't run right back and grab the kid before they corrupt him with their idiotic ideals and heroics. He ended up with Eraserhead instead of some moron like All Might or Endeavor, but it doesn't make him feel much better. He likes Eraserhead, sure. He's a cool hero who fights basically quirkless and sticks to the underground scene, but he doesn't trust him, not with the current hero society he's fighting against, not when he works with people that he despises with his entire heart. Shigaraki tosses his head back to down the rest of the liquid in his glass. The burn of it sliding down his throat mixes with the fresh, red scratches on the pale skin of his neck. Once he finishes, he secures the hand back over his face. He's gotten used to not having it on around the league, at least not when they're alone, but it brings him a sense of comfort that he desperately needs right now. He spares a glance at the couch and finds Toga still leaning around twice, who's trying to comfort her while she refreshes her texts every minute or so. Compress is fidgeting with one of his marbles. His face is hidden by his mask, but his shoulders are slumped slightly in defeat. Even Dabi seems upset, although it's harder to tell with him. With a sudden burst of anger, he picks up the glass and throws it against the wall with gritted teeth. It shatters on impact and, after the initial moment of satisfaction, he groans at the mess of shards and the lack of real closure it gives him. Those stupid heroes have to ruin everything. He was just starting to get attached to the kid and now he's gone and they have to wait to get him back unless they want to risk being injured or arrested, with their luck maybe both. And as much as he wants to just rush in and start decaying things, decaying people, he has to admit that it would be a stupid plan and Midoriya would end up staying with those heroes even longer, maybe permanently, which he really doesn't want. Shiggy, you okay? He huffs and twists his fingers, his jaw clenched tight although it's hidden from the others. He remembers how it happened, which isn't very surprising, since it only happened a few days ago. He should have pushed the kid into the front, or grabbed the kid when he saw him pull back. He should have decayed that stupid scarf the second he caught the smallest glance of it, his respect for Eraserhead be damned. His fingers twitch slightly as Toga stares at him, her own version of concern visible on her face. She might stab them a lot, but Shigaraki knows she views the League as the family she never really got to have after her quirk was discovered. This is so unfair, he grits out, trying to keep his voice level. It doesn't really work, odd cracks and noises bordering on annoyed screams seeping into his tone. They don't have any right to get involved when they don't have any idea what the whole story is. That familiar itch bubbles under his neck and he untangles his hands from each other before he reaches up and claws at his throat, his nails leaving scratches that bead with dark red blood. It smears with each pass of his fingers and stains his flesh until a hand wraps around his wrists and tugs them away, texture tough and scarred and unnaturally warm as they gently pull them. You won't be able to tell them that if you F up your throat anymore, HNDJB. Compress is already passing him the bandages and disinfectant they usually use on their injuries. Cheap stuff, but effective. Shigaraki sighs and lifts his head begrudgingly to expose the column of his throat, his pained grimace hidden behind the hand. The only way anyone can tell what he's thinking is from the tenseness of his shoulders and the way he's clutching the stool he's sitting on with his index finger raised stiffly. Once his neck is hidden behind white bandages, he lowers his head again. "Any news, Toga?" Dabi asks once he slips the materials back to Compress. "No," she pouts, looking close to tears. "Zuko usually texts me more than this. All he said was the Eraserhead thing and it's been like a day." Twice's hand runs through her hair reassuringly as she refreshes yet again. What if the heroes found out about us and they're interrogating him? What if he gets thrown in jail where I'll never be able to see his cute little face ever again? There's a beat of silence after her dramatic rant, because they're confident in Midoriya's abilities, but there's always a chance of them figuring out his connection to them, or tracking them down as, well, either by a slip of the tongue or connecting loose ends in whatever story he's decided to go with. "I'm sure he's okay. They'll probably torture him." The conflicting, slightly worrying statement from Twice seems to bring Toga a bit of comfort anyways. Or maybe it's the fact that the 3 dots that show Midoriya is typing show up at the bottom of the screen in a small gray bubble. Everyone leans in just slightly as they wait for the message. Shigaraki removes the hand and sets it on the counter so he can get a better view of Toga's screen. The message sends and Twice shakes Toga's shoulder. "Read it. Ignore it." She clears her throat and adjusts the phone so that everyone can look at the message. "Zuzu, hey guys. I'm assuming a few of you are reading this, not just Toga. Sorry it took a bit to update, I was busy for a bit. I'm still staying with Eraserhead, he has cats, and he's also married to present Mike's sorry Shigaraki, which is nice. He's bringing me to UA tomorrow, like the hero school. IDK what's gonna happen there, but I'll try to update you later tomorrow. Miss you guys, I'm gonna be looking out for the best chance for you guys to come get me back. P.S. I think I bonded with Endeavor's kid because we both hate him." Shigaraki is about to speak when Dabi beats him to it, the staples around his mouth pulling a bit as he speaks. "Ask what the kid looked like." Not bothering to question him, Toga adds that to the reply she's writing, which also includes statements about how they also miss him and they're going to work to get him back as soon as possible. The kid replies after a minute. "Zukua, kind of tall and a bit muscular. His hair is half red and half white, and he's got one gray eye and one blue one. About my age, face not very expressive. He didn't talk much tbh. I'm glad to hear that you guys miss me. I've GTG shower though." With that, the kid stops texting. Dabi turns and leaves the room, mumbling under his breath. Shigaraki watches him go, but decides to focus on another point of information the kid gave him instead of that. UA is powerful, well-guarded, and full of information. If he can get Midoriya to send them information he learns about events, or the teachers, or even the students, then the league will be at an advantage. He doesn't want to involve any of the students, but he will if he really needs to. If Midoriya can gain their trust, he can gain what he needs. The kid will be a natural at it. He has a cute face and an excited, welcoming personality, and a free entrance given by Eraserhead himself. "What are you thinking about, Shigaraki Tamura?" Kurogyari asks. Shigaraki didn't realize he was at the bar until a minute ago, but he doesn't jump at the sudden voice. He's grown used to it, truthfully, people appearing suddenly. Toga and Dabi can be surprisingly quiet when they want to F with him. "I think," he mutters as he sits on the stool again, "we might have a little UA spy, Kurogyari. UA is big and impressive, and honestly a little bit terrifying." Sitting in Eraserhead's desk while the man naps in an obnoxious yellow sleeping bag is a strange way to start the day, but he can think of worse options. He kicks his legs slightly as he opens a fresh notebook. If he wants to gather information for Shigaraki, like the man requested earlier that day, then he should start simple and gather information on their quirks. The first person to arrive is a tall boy with glasses and blue hair, who immediately sticks out an arm in a robotic fashion. "You look quite young to be a teacher." His voice is loud and Midoriya finds himself sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck. He should probably find a different spot, but it's probably too late now. I'm not actually the teacher. He'll be here to explain pretty soon though. The rest of the students file in while chatting with each other. A boy with a bird head, a girl who's entirely pink with black and gold eyes, a guy with strange arms and a mask, Todoroki, and Bakugo catch Midoriya's eye. Once every seat is filled, he clears his throat and notices Eraserhead's eyes are still closed. I guess this must be kind of confusing, but I'm not your teacher. He's here, he's just not. He waves his hand and notices his nervousness has increased slightly as he clenches at the side of his notebook. Hushed whispers of confusion spread through the classroom and Midoriya swallows around the lump in his throat. That's enough. You'll confuse them. The sleeping back moves with the man into a semi-sitting position. This is Midoriya Izuku. He's going to be staying with our class until his caretakers return. Don't bother him. I'm Aizawa Shoyuda, I'll be your teacher. Other than that, do whatever you want for introductions. With that, the man sinks back down and falls asleep within seconds. Midoriya stares at him, before realizing that everyone seems to be looking to him. They'd probably want an idea of what to start with. He bites his lip before he looks back up at them and tries to make himself remain cool and confident, which falls when he catches Bakugo's glare. The boy looks even more sad than usual, which is honestly impressive. Let's start with the basics. Names, quirks, and if we're comfortable pronouns. That seems fine, nothing too bad about that. He adjusts his notebook to be hidden from view and writes down a list with 19 spots. One for each student excluding himself. Like Mr. Aizawa said, my name is Midoriya Izuku, I go by he/him. My quirk that I'd prefer not to say for now, sorry. He gives them a shrug and after a few glances, nobody seems to push it. The boy with glasses stands up next and does that same robotic gesture with his arm, so Midoriya decides to make his name the first on the list, pen leaving a dot of ink as he waits for the boy to speak. I am Tenya Ida. I also go by he/him. My quirk is engine. He gestures to his leg, where Izuku sees unusual protrusions. It allows me to move at extremely fast speeds and travel long distances in a short amount of time. Midoriya hastily writes down a short version of the description. If this boy really is related to the hero Ingenium, then he's going to be a good student to focus on gathering information from. And his quirk interests Izuku. He wonders how similar it is to Ingenium's, and the differences as well. He's sure they're going to be similar heroes, focused on speed because of the man point of their quirks. I'll go next then. I'm Uraraka Achiko, she/her. My quirk is zero gravity. She touches a book on her desk and it starts to float into the air, almost reaching the ceiling until she taps her fingers together with a shout of, release. She grins as the book clatters back to the desk. As soon as my fingertips touch an object, it loses its gravitational pull. Using it too much makes me nauseous though, she adds, and Midoriya makes a mental note to not push her quirk too far. That stuff has always made his stomach turn, and he's going to avoid it if he can. I'll go as well. I'm Yaoyorozu Momo, she/her. My quirk is creation. It allows me to materialize objects from different parts of my body, like weapons and tools, but I can't make living things. I need to understand the atomic configuration in order to make something. As an example, she produces a small doll of some sort that Midoriya can't remember the name of. The number of things I can create depends on how many lipids are in my body. Midoriya writes that one down next, making a note that it could be useful in creating some gear for the league. It passes surprisingly quickly and Midoriya finds himself liking everyone except the short purple-haired boy who says I'm a dude and normal when asked about himself. Midoriya stares down at his quirk in the list. He's not particularly smart, his quirk isn't very useful, and he keeps staring at Yaoyorozu's chest like he even has the slightest chance. He's tempted to just scratch it out and forget about the whole thing, but it's good to have information on him if they ever encounter him in a fight. Not that he's very threatening, twice could probably kick him into the sun with ease. Midoriya sighs as he hears the angry popping of tiny explosions. D-dash. The boy's mouth is wrapped before he can say anything else, and to Midoriya's relief Eraserhead seems awake now, his brow is furrowed and he seems apathetic at best, but Kacchin isn't attacking him, so it's a decent outcome. That's enough of that. Grab your PE clothes and follow me out to the field. There's a look of confusion from a few of the students and he sighs. Because you were unable to use your quirks in middle school, we'll be doing a quirk apprehension test. Midoriya bites back a quip about Bakugo not catching the memo of not being able to use quirks in middle school, because he's sure if he does his face will resemble raw meat more than a face. The students walk off and Midoriya glances down at his notebook. His notes so far aren't very detailed, more quick summaries of their quirks than full descriptions, but he has plenty of time to analyze them more one-on-one. He's got a few in mind that might be useful, or ones they should be cautious of in battle. He's also taken a few notes on Eraserhead and present mix quirks, written on the last few pages of his previous journal, filling up the once blank pages with doodles of their costumes and gear and paragraphs of strengths, weaknesses, and extra abilities. Once the students are ready, Eraserhead looks down at Midoriya once again. You wanna watch, kid? Midoriya brightens and flips the book to a new page before he leaps to his feet. This is the perfect opportunity. So much information so soon is almost too good to be true, he exclaims internally. Don't fanboy so much that you distract them, this is a serious test. Midoriya tries to calm his expression, but even when pressing his lips into a thin line the corners eventually curl up. Eraserhead sends him a look that he could maybe describe as exasperated but bordering on fond. Wow, younger him would be crying at this moment. I'm assuming that's a yes. Oh, right, he hasn't said anything yet. Of course, sir. Midoriya walks next to Eraserhead while the class trails after them, his thoughts racing and his notes tucked under his arm. He's not participating in the tests, so he's still wearing his normal outfit. Hey Midoriya. The girl with short brown hair, Uraraka, exclaims. How'd you meet Mr. Aizawa anyways? Are you two related or something? Midoriya's eyes widen slightly and he feels the tips of his ears grow hot as he waves his arms wildly through the air. He sees the man spare the two of them a glance, but he can't tell what his full expression is under the scarf. Oh no. Nothing like that as far as I know. I'm actually staying with some people who had to leave for business and do you remember that school that was on the news? The one targeted by those villains. Uraraka nods. I was actually, passing by, and the villains tried to take me. Luckily, Eraserhead was there and he saved me, so I'm staying with him for a bit. He waits for a second as Uraraka takes in the information, and then looks back at him. She radiates a feeling of energy and bubbliness, and it makes Midoriya just a bit less nervous. Wow, that must have been really scary. He just nods, scared he'll give something away if he replies to that. But it's really cool that you get to stay with a hero. I bet you'll learn a lot even if you're not an official student. She's right, but he doesn't think the way he's going to use the information is the way she's thinking of. He smiles at her and nods, fidgeting slightly with the book under his arm. Oh hey, what's that for? She points at it and he goes to reply when Eraserhead cuts him off. Midoriya looks up and notices that this must be the location. He doesn't know if there's anything special about it, but it sure looks like it's fit for a test like this. Stop talking, we're here. Midoriya glances at the field, and then swallows down the nervous lump in his throat. He won't be involved in the actual test. All he has to do is stay out of the way and jot down enough notes to be useful to the league. Alright, you'll all be competing in a series of tests in order to test out your quirks. He grabs a ball as Midoriya pulls out his notes and flips to his newest page. Bakugo, take this. Midoriya perks up and then messily scrawls Bakugo Katsuki over the top of the page he's on. He jots down the number Bakugo says and the improved distance once the pitch is over, and makes a mental note of how much stronger the blonde has gotten. Murmurs of excitement and surprise pass between the other students. Eraserhead glares at them. There is one rule I should mention before we start. The person who comes in last place will be deemed hopeless and expelled immediately. There's a beat of silence before everyone starts yelling and panicking, and Midoriya stares at the man with wide eyes. That seems a bit harsh, it's the first test he thinks. Then again, he has no idea how to teach, so he's not going to argue about an assignment he doesn't even have to do. After that, the man turns again. Let's start then. I want to get this over with as soon as possible. A few students follow quickly, while a few hang in the back to talk about the test among themselves. This is gonna be terrifying. The student who comes in last place is gonna be kicked out and all my quirk does is make me invisible. One of the girls cries out, the fear in her voice displaying what her unseen expression doesn't. The boy with a tail places a comforting hand on her shoulder as they pass by. It will be harder for some of the students. I can see a few that don't have quirks that enhance their physical strength. I'm sure there will be tests that focus on other things, though, or else it would be unfair for people with less flashy quirks. He doesn't realize he's been standing there and thinking, mumbling under his breath, until Uraraka places a hand on his shoulder and snaps him out of his thought-filled mind. Come on, Midoriya, you can wish me luck. He nods and rushes forwards with her until they catch up with the rest of the group. He flips to the next page and writes down the name Uraraka Achiko, then focuses back on the tests. He writes down notes for each of the students as they come up, noticing strengths and weaknesses. A few stand out. The electric kid fries his brain with overuse, the bird boy struggles with containing the odd shadow-like quirk inside him, and Uraraka seems to have a weak stomach when using her quirk too much. He doesn't know when or if they'll ever encounter each other in combat, but better safe than sorry. Todoroki seems to rely on his ice more than his fire. In fact, now that he thinks about it, he hasn't once seen Todoroki use his other side. He wonders if it's resentment towards Endeavor, or if it's just a pain to use. Either way, he hastily adds it to the notes on his page. Bakugo is still as explosion-happy as usual, tiny sparks in his palms even when he doesn't really need to have them going, a sharp grin on his features and a wild look in his eyes that makes Midoriya shiver and rubs the large starburst scar where his neck meets his shoulder before he fidgets with his pen to distract himself. Uraraka gives him a glance, but he just throws her a confident thumbs up. Once all the tests have passed, Eraserhead sighs and gestures for them to leave him alone while he looks at the results. Hey Midoriya. The guy with bright red hair, Kirishima, he's pretty sure. I saw you were writing about something while we were doing the test. What's up with the notebook? He mumbles something shyly under his breath before he closes it and smiles at him, cheeks dusted a slightly red color as he twirls the pen between his fingers. More people gather around, Kaminari, Ida and Uraraka specifically. He takes a deep breath to steady his voice. Oh, these are just analysis notes, nothing really special yet, but it's been a hobby I've been passionate about for years. I've only got a few things written so far, but maybe I can ask you guys some questions later? My quirk isn't that special, so I can't give much advice, but I'm good at figuring out strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. Kirishima grins and smashes his fists together in front of him, a wide, sharp-toothed grin on his face. Despite his somewhat intimidating appearance, Midoriya thinks he's actually pretty nice, from his limited interactions anyways. Super manly, bro. I'm always looking for ways to improve my quirk. A chorus of agreements follows and Midoriya feels a warm, fuzzy feeling in his chest. This is almost the same feeling he has with the League, the feeling of sharing his hobbies and not being mocked for them. But they don't know you were quirkless, a traitorous voice whispers in the back of his mind. If they knew they wouldn't be treating you the same, they'd think you were creepy. He bites the inside of his cheek before Kirishima speaks up again. You must have some sort of really cool analysis quirk, right? Something you can activate by looking at someone. Not exactly? Oh, I guess I kind of assumed, huh? Kirishima rubs the back of his neck. But if you don't have an analysis quirk then you're super smart, which is even more manly. He doesn't know why he's so obsessed with the concept of manliness, but it's phrased in such a positive, complimenting way that Midoriya just nods to go along with it. I know you said you didn't want to share back in class, but I'm really curious. Is it something physical? Or maybe something to do with someone's thoughts? Ooh, mind reading? Mind reading, in Midoriya's opinion, would be a cool but invasive quirk, depending on the way it functioned. Always hearing someone's thoughts sounds like a pain. Don't pester the guy. If he doesn't want to tell us then he doesn't have to. The girl with jacks hanging from her earlobes pipes up, her voice still slightly amused from laughing at Kaminari's antics from quirk overuse. The boy is flashing a set of thumbs up, eyes crossed and a wide grin on his face, definitely not completely there. Although, I have to admit I'm a little curious. Nobody's gonna judge it, it'd be stupid to. She shrugs before another round of laughter is muffled into her palm when she turns back to Kaminari. Midoriya hides his own small laugh behind a cough. It won't be so bad to show them, right? No, it's definitely going to be traumatizing. He's going to die if he shows it off. Permanent or not, that's gonna leave a mark. What the hell are you extras talking about? A loud voice cuts through the mild chatter of the crowd, gaining the attention it demands from volume alone. Bakugo shoves past Jiru and Kirishima as Midoriya backs up to put a space in between them. Bakugo's eyes seem to glow with rage as he advances on the boy. Tell these extras the truth, Deku. You're quirkless, you're a pathetic nobody. Midoriya swallows and goes to open his mouth when Bakugo lights his palms. Don't try and pretend you belong here. I don't even know why a pro would take somebody like you in. By now they've gathered the attention of most of the class. Bakugo! This is not how a future hero should behave. Ida shouts, his brow furrowed and clear irritation his eyes. Midoriya winces. The guy is doing his best, but all it's doing is making Bakugo grit his teeth even more, his shoulders tense and body in an attack stance. The clear threat of one of his explosions lingering as red eyes meet green. Back away from Midoriya immediately, Bakugo. I will involve Mr. Aizawa if I need to. Bakugo snarls and turns to Ida, his nose wrinkled. Midoriya's heart freezes in his chest. He doesn't want anyone involved with a battle that only involves the two of them, and he needs Bakugo to calm down before anyone else tries anything. Stay out of this, teacher's pet. I'll deal with you once I show this wannabe that he doesn't deserve to be here. He spits before whipping back around to face Midoriya. The green-haired boy manages to keep himself from flinching, which seems to infuriate the boy even more. Okay, Deku, if you really do have some mystery quirk, use it against me before I blow you apart. He sees Eraserhead's capture weapon lash out seconds too late as Bakugo lunges forwards and fires an explosion from his hand. He clearly expects Midoriya to either showcase his quirk or dodge the blast and prove his quirkless status to the rest of his classmates. Midoriya doesn't do either. With a quick sidestep, he's directly in front of the blast. He doesn't get to see anyone's reaction before it hits him, going right through his stomach and leaving a nasty wound. Wound, he decides, kind of sounds like an understatement. The explosion leaves a messy, hole-like shape in his abdomen, surrounded by burnt skin and visible muscle. Destroyed, half-missing organs are shown, disturbing to look even to the owner of them, small bits of them scattered on the grass alongside shards of shattered, broken bones. His knees give out and he falls to the ground, blood bubbling at his lips and staining the white of his teeth a dark crimson red, the same color as the red-soaked blades of grass as his vision goes black. When he comes back, it's to the feeling of his body healing, although he can't see anything but darkness yet. His organs fixing themselves, new tissue replacing gaping holes as his bones snap back into place and repair the missing, splintered ends. His muscles next, mending themselves and weaving together before his skin stretches over that, no longer burned and that same pale shade as the rest of his body. It's an odd feeling, having his body fix itself when he should still be dead. The darkness overtaking his vision feels heavy and cold, despite the fact he's sure it was warm out when he died. His vision comes back slowly, black and white blobs that could maybe be classified as shapes, slowly gaining muted colors and more distinct outlines until it comes back almost fully. Fuzzy, but not enough for him to keep thinking about it. He has a pounding headache that's only getting worse by the addition of loud, terrified screams. Everything feels overwhelming. The grass is itchy and his clothes are uncomfortably sticking to his sweaty skin. He can vaguely make out statements along the lines of "you killed him" and "holy shit, his body healed from that," but he can't tell who the voices are coming from. They kind of sound like they're underwater or far in the distance. Midoriya. Midoriya. There's a hand on his shoulder, broad and roughly textured, as he groans and lets himself be put into a sitting position. He looks down, his shirt is ruined, bloody and torn to sheet, and his breathes are more red than he remembers them. Everything smells like metal. Bakugo is staring at him with wide eyes and pale skin. Eraserhead's weapon is wrapped around him, but as soon as he sees Midoriya isn't dead, he starts struggling against the scarf. "That I lived, beach." He grins, his teeth still feel gross, and when he runs a tongue over them, he can feel the way they're still coated with his blood. The blood stain, he thinks, is the second most obnoxious part. He's almost sure it replaces itself during the process, but whatever he loses during his death doesn't seem to render his body, since this isn't just odd staining. His clothes being effed up, well, that's probably the first most obnoxious. Eraserhead sighs, runs a hand down his face, and then turns to the crowd of terrified students. Todoroki, Shoji, take Midoriya to Recovery Girl so he can be looked over. We're not sure how reliable his quirk is yet. He's lifted carefully by Todoroki onto Shoji's back, secured by the multiple arms the boy's quirk gives him. Ida, Yaoyorozu, escort the others back to class. Make sure nobody is injured. You two are in charge while I'm busy. He tugs on his capture weapon, pulling a struggling Bakugo along with it. Bakugo, you're coming with me. The two disappear and Yaoyorozu helps Ida guide the others back towards the classroom. Midoriya waits in silence for a few minutes as they make their way towards the nurse's office before he speaks again. So, can I ask you guys some questions after this? It truly is a remarkable quirk. Recovery Girl comments as she looks over Midoriya one more time. Being hit by an explosion that close-up should have left burns at least, but it's like nothing ever happened, well, if you ignore the blood and the clothes at least. He nods as she finishes and sighs. Go wash up, dear, I'll find a uniform your size so you don't have to walk around like that all day. He thanks her and she turns to Todoroki and Shoji. You two get back to class now, Midoriya is alright. They both hesitate, because he just died and now he's smiling at them like nothing even happened and giving them a friendly wave. I'll be okay, guys. Tell the others I'll explain once I'm not all bloody. That seems to convince them and they both leave the office. Midoriya sighs and gladly takes the directions to the showers, relief flooding him when he enters the room. He adjusts the shower handle and steps in with a sigh. It reminds him of the day he left for the league, except UA has showers with better water pressure and the temperature is just right, lasting long enough for the tension to leak from his muscles as he scrubs any stubborn blood from his skin and hair. When he gets out, he sees a uniform sitting outside the showers and dries off before slipping it on. It's the standard boys' uniform, clean grays and blues that make him think, for just a second, that he looks like an actual UA student. He thinks it's funny that if someone who isn't part of Class 1A walks by right now, they won't have any idea he was dead maybe an hour ago. The idea that he just gave the class trauma is less funny to him, but he tries not to dwell on that. After all, being a hero is a traumatic career. He walks down the hall and stops in front of the door to 1A, trying to make out the chatter he can hear from outside. Unfortunately, it's muffled and every word seems to run together. Better to just go in and get it over with. Maybe I can get more notes if I share my quirk info first. He pushes it open and steps in, automatically feeling several pairs of eyes on him. Good news, he starts, I'm not dead anymore. He smiles, though it probably comes out more awkward than he intends. They're staring at him like he's about to explode into a million gory bits, so he glances over at Eraserhead, who nods. I'm just gonna say that I only discovered my quirk recently, so I'm not completely sure about the way it works, but I do have a lot of theories that might give some closure. He rubs the back of his neck. Okay, my quirk allows me to heal from large or fatal injuries as far as I can tell. That's the only part I'm almost completely sure about, at least. When Bakugo used his quirk on me earlier, hey, where is Bakugo? He glances around the classroom and doesn't see a sign of the hot-headed blonde. It should have been a giveaway when I wasn't called Deku in the first 5 seconds, he thinks as he looks back at Eraserhead. The man sighs and runs a hand through his dark hair. Principal's office, currently. Continue. It's weird hearing he's actually being reprimanded, but Midoriya doesn't dwell on it. Right? Anyways, like I was saying, when Bakugo used his quirk on me earlier I died temporarily, but my quirk healed the injury and brought me back, as a basic explanation. He taps his chin. Although, I've been thinking of any potential limits it might have. I think it needs something to work from. When Bakugo used his quirk it left a big wound in my abdomen, but I still had skin and muscle and stuff like that, so it was able to heal itself. He's aware he's rambling, but he's not muttering it, so it should be alright. But if, like, I had a vital organ removed, I don't think my body could just grow an entirely new one, same with body parts like arms and legs. So if my head got cut off, I wouldn't be able to just grow an entirely new head, I would actually die. He blinks and clears his throat. None of that is confirmed, though, just some ideas I had. What about small wounds? Do those get healed too? Azui asks, her tongue poking slightly out of her mouth as she asks. Midoriya makes a mental note to ask if those mannerisms are fully related to her quirk as he shakes his head and rolls up his sleeve, showing off a variety of old scars, dark against his pale skin and interrupting a pattern of small freckles. He knows they must look bad, because he hears a few sharp intakes of breath once he gestures to them. He remembers the story of almost all of them, but he doesn't think they have time to unpack all of that childhood trauma while he's explaining his quirk to them. Nah, smaller wounds like some of the ones that cause these scars don't get fully healed like something from earlier did. I don't think they're dangerous enough to trigger my quirk into action. But if I got a small wound somewhere serious and started bleeding out, I think it would activate because something like that would be potentially life-threatening. I still have a lot of my scars because I didn't have a life-threatening injury until, he pauses, there was an accident that should have killed me, which is when I discovered my quirk. That wasn't very long ago, so I'm still not totally sure of my limits or any other abilities that it might have. Once he finishes, he takes a seat and lets Eraserhead tell the class to do whatever, as long as I don't get woken up. Midoriya, your quirk is super interesting. Mina exclaims as she rushes up to the spare desk he's claimed as his own space for when Eraserhead is busy working. Okay, you don't have to answer if it's a weird question, but what's it like to die? Midoriya blinks before he mumbles something under his breath, thoughts going a million miles a minute before he finally looks up at the small crowd that's gathered around his desk, clearly curious about the answer he's going to give. How do I explain death? Thinks. It's not dark, pitch black and usually cold, nothing much. Happens until his quirk gets involved and brings him back. Well, the first time it wasn't really that odd, everything just went black and I woke up a little bit later, and I was kind of sore but overall I felt okay. This recent time I could feel my body healing itself, but I couldn't see anything that was happening. It was weird, I expected it to hurt but it was more vaguely uncomfortable. Like I knew it shouldn't logically be happening, but it was anyways. Everything sounded like it was underwater, and it kind of felt that way too, dark and cold. My vision came back kinda slow too, it started really blurry and then went back to normal after a bit. I had a headache and stuff was overwhelming, everything I touched felt like too much. There was a metallic smell too, but it was probably the blood. I admire the fascinating darkness that comes with a quirk like yours, Tokoyami mutters, and then Eraserhead decides it's time to start an actual lesson, rising from the bright yellow fabric of his sleeping bag and turning to the class. One glare sends the ones who are standing back to their seats within a few seconds, and Midoriya admires the way he can do that without a word. He rubs his temple and then pulls out a stack of papers that Midoriya can't exactly get a good glimpse at until they're placed onto his desk. I completely forgot about these test results. He thinks as he gathers them into a neat stack in his hands. Don't think I forgot about the results of the test just because of the little incident that happened earlier. The room seems to drop 10 degrees. Midoriya will pass out your papers, take time to look over them and remember what happens to the person who came in last. He slips each student a group of papers that, from what he can read, details their performance and their placement amongst their classmates. A few seem to stand out as talented, Todoroki doing well doesn't surprise him, and a few seem to be less fortunate due to their quirks being less flashy. Hagakure and Mineta seem especially nervous as Eraserhead stares the class down. Once Midoriya sits, he crosses his arms. Now for the most important part, nobody is getting expelled. There's a beat of silence before people start freaking out, either happy or confused or a mixture of both. Midoriya's eyes widen slightly. That part of the test was a logical ruse to pull out your best performances. Now look over those until it's time for all of you to leave. You still have a lot of improving to do, even if you ranked highly. The time seems to pass quickly after that, and Midoriya waves to them once the bell rings and they all head out of the room. Once it's empty, except for the two of them, Aizawa turns to look him in the eyes. Expression harsh but not necessarily angry. Alright kid, make sure to rest well tonight, we're having your quirk examined tomorrow. Midoriya wakes up eagerly and checks the clock, 7:30 on a Saturday morning, surprisingly not the earliest he's woken up during the weekend. He stretches and runs his hands through his hair before he sorts out his outfit, a simple pair of jeans and a shirt that says sweater, one that he picked out when Eraserhead noticed he was severely lacking any sort of clothing a day or two after the Aldra attack. Now that he has a uniform, which Eraserhead says he should just wear during school hours so he doesn't attract any sort of attention from the other classes, he supposes he doesn't need to worry about doing this during the week. He sets the clothes on the end of his bed and scrolls through his social media feed until it's a closer time to his actual appointment at 10. A few hours of mindless scrolling seem to pass like seconds, and before he knows it, it's already 9, which makes his small smile grow even brighter. He changes after a quick shower and meets the man in the living room, unsurprised to find him dressed in all black. Although his hair is drawn back into a small ponytail and his capture weapon isn't secured around his neck like it usually is. It makes sense, since neither of them want to stand out. You ready, kid? This shouldn't take long, since you've already analyzed your own quirk, but it's better to make sure nothing strange is going on sooner than later. He nods eagerly, and after a few short goodbyes to the cats and his husband, the two left. Midoriya slips into the passenger seat of the car and eagerly stares down at his notes on his own quirk. He's got a few name ideas jotted down, all scratched out as too long or not cool enough, and the word revitalize is circled in dark ink, as well as a few tests he wants to perform if he figures out how to get away with them. You seem eager, though I'm not surprised with how much interest you show in quirks. Yeah, it's just, being quirkless for 15 years made me really want to study them. I always wanted to be a hero even back then, so I thought maybe if I studied fighting styles I could be just like the ones I saw on TV, quirk or not. He falters slightly, and Eraserhead must mistake bitterness for sadness because a hand pats him on the shoulder, warm and comforting yet so bittersweet. Don't get too attached to him. An inner voice that sounds oddly like Shigaraki reminds him, you're going to betray him, you're gathering information to use against him. He knows that if Eraserhead had any clue, he'd try to either convert him to the side of heroics, or try to get information from the League out of him. Neither of those can happen, neither of those will happen. He might look naive and cute, but he's confident in his ability to keep a secret. He's kept it this long after all. The rest of the ride is spent in comfortable silence. It's strange compared to the constant background noise he's used to, but it's not nice, almost peaceful despite the fact he'd be terrified of Eraserhead if he wasn't living with the guy. The drive isn't long, maybe 5 minutes at most, and they eventually arrive at a tall, official-looking building. Midoriya suddenly feels underdressed. The main room is almost pure white, the tile floor shiny, and there's a woman with her hair done up in an intricate style typing away at a computer with long, black nails. "How can I help you?" she asks in an accented voice. She looks normal, clearly not a visible mutation quirk. Midoriya takes a chance to glance behind her, documents and photos obscured by the angle he's standing at. She glances at him and he stands up straight, arms rigid at his sides. "Do you have Midoriya Izuku in your records?" Eraserhead asks, and Midoriya tries to ignore the urge to wince. He's sure they have him in their records. The man who put him in when he was first diagnosed basically laughed in his face and typed with such irritation that young Midoriya had felt like he was ruining his day by simply breathing. Actually, he won't be surprised if the man didn't even bother registering him. The woman looks at him for a second before turning back to her computer screen. She clicks her mouse a few times, and the way her expression sours lets Midoriya know that she's probably found his name, plastered next to a bolded quirkless in the middle of a sea of people with amazing, flashy powers. The bitterness from earlier returns, strong and heavy in his chest and stomach as she looks back up at Eraserhead. "Yes, quirkless, right?" The word escapes her lips with such contempt that Midoriya either wants to sink into the ground and die or smash her stupid face into her obnoxiously loud keyboard, maybe both, but not in that order. Diagnosed at 4 years old, no update since then. Most late bloomers show their quirk at ages 7 to 8, so unless there's been a miracle, I'm quite surprised you're asking about him. Yeah, unless their quirk keeps them from dying. Midoriya bites his tongue. Eraserhead gives her a deadpan, slightly irritated look before digging through his pocket and pulling out a small card that makes the woman pale at the sight of it. Midoriya can't see what's written on it, but it must be important. Turns out there's been a change. Now can I get his quirk assessed here or not? He asks, and she clears her throat before making a quick call on the phone position beside her. A muffled voice comes through it as she mumbles something, her eyes repeatedly darting back to Eraserhead, who raises an eyebrow slightly. Midoriya rocks on his heels as he waits, hoping the situation finishes quickly. The woman hangs up and then looks back at them to direct them to an office down the hall. Eraserhead gestures for him to follow and Midoriya does so eagerly, glad to get away from the increasingly awkward area around the front desk. The office they enter is completely different looking, calming, deep hues of blue with dashes of purple. The woman sitting at the desk has long, white hair that floats around her head, like she's floating peacefully underwater, wisps of it falling across her face. It reminds him of Eraserhead's when using his quirk. Her eyes are closed and the expression on her face seems peaceful. She opens her eyes and Midoriya notices that they don't have any real pupils or irises, instead a swirling mix of purple, blue and white, almost resembling the galaxy. Oh, hello. You must be Eraserhead and Midoriya Izuku. I'm Fukushima Hinako. Her voice seems to echo in the room as she gestures for them to sit in the chairs in front of her desk. Now, Midoriya, I heard that you were registered as quirkless a while ago. Has that changed? Something about her is so calming that Midoriya finds himself openly nodding in response to her question. Yeah, I figured it out recently during an accident. I've written down some notes and ideas, but I'm not sure how accurate they are. He adds. He holds out the page and lets her look over it. Her expression doesn't change much, but her lips are pulled into a soft smile. Man, why can't everyone be like this lady? He thinks as she nods and hands it back to him. Midoriya wonders what her quirk is, but she's muttering something to Eraserhead, and he doesn't want to interrupt whatever conversation that they're having at the moment. After a quick nod, Fukushima looks at Midoriya and holds out her hands, palms up and gesture inviting. Midoriya blinks, confusion taking over his features before he realizes her quirk must be contact-based. My quirk will allow me to understand the details of your quirk. It's a mandatory step to assess your powers. Midoriya nods, and then places his hands on top of hers. A numb, almost floating feeling starts at his fingertips and then spreads throughout his entire body, his shoulders going slack. It ends after what seems like seconds, and when he blinks the woman is scrawling something down on a piece of paper. Your notes are almost entirely correct, Midoriya. It's impressive. If I didn't know for myself I would have assumed analysis or intelligence quirk. I'm assuming you want the circled name? He nods and she adds that to what she's writing. You can expect the database to be updated within the next week, and you'll receive the paperwork a few days before that. Have a nice day. She grins as Midoriya thanks her. Once they're both out of the building, Eraserhead turns to him. How's it feel to have an official quirk, kid? He asks, and Midoriya chews on his bottom lip. It feels conflicting. He's so used to being looked down on for being quirkless, to bruises and insults and threats. It feels like him having a quirk is the only reason he's going to be treated like a person, even if it's not a flashy, heroic quirk. But on the other hand, he feels relieved. Relieved that he can finally look someone in the eyes and name his quirk, relieved that he has another way to help the league and another point he can use to potentially open up conversations about quirks he needs to gather information on. With a shrug and a lopsided smile, he goes with his first instinct. Good, I feel good. The rest of the weekend passes uneventfully, mostly full of revising his notes and cuddling with the cats while he still can. He's proud of what he's written, all from quick questions and observations. With a still aching hand, he rubs his wrist at the thought of all that editing and closes the notebook before he grabs his phone and slips it into his bag. He clears his notifications and then opens his texts with Toga, smiling at the video she sent him the other night. It's Shigaraki, passed out at the bar, hands carefully adjusted so he doesn't decay the entire area. Dabi is sneaking up on him and, with a grin at the camera, slips a pair of fake cat ears into the man's mess of pastel hair. Toga picks up the hand on the counter and shows off a small smiley face drawn with the washable marker lying next to the object. The picture that follows shows the boss waking up, oblivious to the changes to his attire. Midoriya had spent last night muffling tear-bringing laughter into his palm. The strange positioning of Shigaraki's hands reminds him of the task he's actually doing, standing in front of the support department before classes. He clears his throat and then opens the door. The room is full of impressive machinery, but less organized than he originally assumed. A pile of something sits in the corner. "Hello!" A loud voice yells and he squeaks as he's pulled further into the lab. "Wow, I've never seen you around here before. My name is Hatsume. Did you sneak in just to see my super cute babies?" She holds up some sort of invention that looks seconds from exploding, and he swallows the lump in his throat as she continues to talk a mile a minute, hands waving wildly as she measures parts of him. "So, what are you in the mood for?" She finishes, hands on her hips. Midoriya blinks and then pulls a pair of artist gloves from his pocket. He's pretty sure they'll fit Shigaraki judging on the measurements Toga got from Twice. I have a friend who has a certain quirk that destroys stuff when he touches it with all 5 fingers. I was wondering if you could maybe modify some gloves like these? Something lightweight and easy to remove would be preferable, and styled a bit like this so there's only a few fingers covered. He's not completely sure if this idea will even work, but he might as well try now that he has people with the skills available to make his idea an actual thing. Hatsume unfolds the gloves and takes them, mumbling and rubbing the fabric between her fingers. I understand if you can't do it. It was just an idea." He waves his hands and tries to back up, only for Hatsume to approach him again, a wide smile splitting her face. "I can totally do that for ya. I need to make sure we've got this one material that I think will work best, so check back with me in a day or two, okay? I'm sure I can have Power Loader give me his input too." She starts walking away and Midoriya takes the chance to escape the lab. He sighs and runs a hand down his face. That was more overwhelming than he thought it would be. He runs a hand through his hair and then adjusts his uniform and then speed walks away from the door before Hatsume has a chance to pull him back into her lab. He's got to get to class anyways. He might be living with Eraserhead, but the man won't be happy with him if he's late. Thankfully he's got a bit of time, so his quick pace gets him to the 1A room in no time. Most of the class is still there, even Bakugo, who simply glares at him and turns to stare out the window. "Midoriya." Ida jolts up at his arrival. "I was informed you got your quirk assessed. How did it go?" Midoriya smiles as he takes a seat and rests his arms on his desk. Eraserhead isn't there yet, he notes, which means he rushed here for no real reason, and now he's all sweaty and gross for no reason. He admires Eraserhead, but the man is a strange combination of exhausted, apathetic, strict, and secretly soft. He thinks that if he told the small and naively hopeful version of himself that Eraserhead is married to present Mike and wears shirts with cartoon cats on them, young him would burst into tears. And then probably scribble it down with messy crayon into his notebook full of badly proportioned All Might drawings and phrases. If he told his younger self that he's working with a group of villains and infiltrating UA for information, he'd start crying for a different reason entirely, a less happy one. "It went really well. It's called Revitalize. All the stuff I told you guys the other day is pretty much accurate, so I know most of my limits and stuff." He grins at the tall boy. He's still not sure what side effects his quirk comes with, or if coming back to life will have any physical effects, but he doesn't get the chance to voice that before Eraserhead enters the room, already heading straight for his sleeping bag. How someone who wears consistently black can relax in something that makes Midoriya's eyes burn is still a mystery to him. The man stops in front of his desk and eyes the class, making sure everyone is paying attention, before he sighs and rubs his temple. Whatever he's about to say must be irritating him, because his bloodshot eyes seem even worse than usual. Midoriya leans forward slightly to wait for him to speak. "All right, all of you change into your hero costumes. We're going to have battle training at Ground B with." He pauses and inhales, as if willing himself to continue, "All Might." A few people start yelling, a few talking excitedly in their own groups. "Enough. Get changed and don't be late, or I'll leave you here. Midoriya, since you aren't technically a full hero student, you can wait outside for everyone to get ready." Midoriya blinks, snaps himself out of an internal monologue, and bows before slipping through the classroom door. He hastily pulls his phone out of his pocket again and fumbles a bit, thankful he left the tab from earlier open. Zuko Toga, make a chat with the others, I have big news to share. Vampire Kinney has started. No Dad's Club. Handyman, WTF is this? Vampire Kinney, Midoriya wants to tell us something. Handyman, this is effing stupid. Vampire Kinney, why are you so angry, uneasy face goes AB's D or something? Burnt bitch, yeah mophead come SEK my D, or something. Handyman, die. Handyman, anyways what do you want to tell us brat? International Super Spy, oh yeah. I'm gonna be doing a lesson with All Might. Handyman. Burnt bitch, oh no he said the LMGHT words. Handyman, he hate that guy I hope you kill him ugly but smiling BT. I am here, I wish you in weren't God I want him dead ans Jen. Vampire Kinney, oh good Dadajiri took his phone. You can get back to work Zuko. By the time that odd exchange is over, everybody is ready to leave. Uraraka and Ida approach him and he grins at them. Hey Midoriya, do you think you'll get to participate this lesson, or just watch? Uraraka asks, tilting her head slightly. Her hero costume is fitting for her overall aesthetic, and Midoriya can easily point out how it will work well with her quirk. He shrugs as they start trailing after Eraserhead. There's an overall aura of excitement, which he can understand. After all, they're only students and they're getting to work with the number one hero. Midoriya has always liked All Might, his old room full of posters, figures and other merch proves that easily. He's excited to see how the man teaches and how he looks up close. I assume he'll only watch, since he only recently got his quirk assessed and he's not officially listed as a hero student. Ida chimes in, waving his arm robotically, a habit Midoriya notices him doing a lot. It seems to irritate Bakugo, but Midoriya doesn't mind it, he thinks it's kind of cool. Although, if we do end up doing a group activity we might need an extra student, so there's always a chance. He nods and then confidently looks over at the green-haired boy. Midoriya, if we do end up competing against each other, I will do my best no matter what. Midoriya smiles at him. It's nice hearing that instead of I know you're weak and quirkless, so I'll go easy on you, even if the people who said that never really went easy on him. I appreciate that Ida, I'll do my best too if I need to. He replies. Once they reach Ground B, Midoriya looks around for any glimpse of a brightly colored costume or unique blonde hair. Huh, I thought All Might of all people would be easy to spot, he muses to himself. All of a sudden there's a loud noise and Midoriya looks up. A large, muscular figure stands in front of the class in a confident pose. All Might looks exactly like he does on TV, face shrouded in shadows that show off the build of his face, hair done up in the same style and wearing his usual hero costume. Midoriya thought that the camera angles from broadcasts might have made something look off, but no. The man is huge, tall and muscular and he looks like he could squish Midoriya with one quick punch. The teen swallows, nervousness and awe mixing together in his chest until it feels like he's on the verge of being sick. I am here to teach you. The man is even louder than usual, and Midoriya jumps slightly at the volume. The voice is so familiar, it brings back bittersweet memories of hoping and praying for a quirk, of his mother sobbing and holding him before she just gave up. He shakes his head to clear it. Nope, no trauma-filled childhood memories in front of All Might. He imagines Shigaraki seeing this and having a breakdown at the sight of the number one hero. Now, I assume Aizawa has told you all the basic summary of this training trial, but allow me to give you more details. Midoriya bounces on his heels as All Might speaks. The trial of battle will be an indoor battle. You'll all be split into teams of 2, 1 hero team and 1 villain team for each match. The villains will guard a nuclear weapon within the building, and the hero team must attempt to stop them. Midoriya glances up at the scene, wishing to examine it further but restraining himself. If the heroes capture the villains, or reach the nuclear core before the time runs out, then their team wins. If the villains manage to keep the core, or capture the heroes, then their team wins. Everyone will be paired up by lottery. Ah, young man with the green hair, I'm not sure I recognize your name. Midoriya's mouth goes dry. Sheet, he knew this was coming. With a crooked smile and a hand at the back of his neck, he waves his free one in front of him and tries to think of an excuse. He isn't really a hero in training, clearly shown by his lack of hero costume, but he can come up with something else that would be involved with something like this, right? After all, it's not like he snuck in Eraserhead. Himself invited him. I'm a Midoriya Izuku, sir. I'm not an official hero student, I'm staying with Mr. Aizawa for a bit, so I'm more of a teaching assistant. But I'm willing to participate if you need me. He adds the last bit hastily. Midoriya sighs, his shoulders slumping with relief. He's not sure if he should be happy that All Might bought an excuse like that so easily, but he supposes it makes sense. The man can always ask Aizawa if he's unsure about Midoriya's excuse. Besides, the easier he gets away with this stuff the better. He doesn't want to weave a web he gets himself tangled in. He's doing well keeping track of them so far. I'm staying with a nice group of people, they left for businesses, I was almost kidnapped by villains, I'm living with Eraserhead and working as a temporary teaching assistant, that's easy enough. Now that that's settled, we'll go ahead and draw our pairs. Midoriya zones out a bit, thinking of possible combinations. Tokoyami's quirk is strong, but unpredictable. He would be useful against a villain team or defending the weapon he thinks, sending a glance to the boy with a bird head. Yaoyorozu is a good bet too, we can create something to help us with her quirk. Shoji and Jair can both hear upcoming threats, Kirishima's good at defense, Todoroki's really powerful, even using only ice. Hagakure's invisibility will be useful for apprehending the opposite team without being spotted. He doesn't realize he's trailed off until Uraraka taps his shoulder, a somewhat conflicted look on her face. Midoriya gives her an apologetic look after he realizes he was probably mumbling a few seconds ago. Midoriya and Uraraka will be the hero team, paired up against the villain team of Bakugo and Ida. Midoriya's blood runs cold as he glances over at the blonde. His teeth are bared in a snarl and his palms are alight with explosions. Midoriya sighs and silently embraces the cold feeling of death all over again. Man, and he likes this uniform too. Ida approaches the two of them, his brow is furrowed slightly as he turns to Midoriya and adjusts his glasses. Midoriya takes a deep breath as Bakugo turns his heated gaze to the taller boy, and Midoriya almost envies Ida. As rude as Bakugo might be, he won't fight his teammate and risk losing a match to Uraraka and him. Are you alright, Midoriya? We can always see if All Might will adjust some of the pairings. Midoriya shakes his head, not bothering to appear excited about his current situation. No, it's alright, Ida. I doubt it'll happen anyways, and Bakugo will go after me some other time anyways, so there's no point wasting All Might's time. He pats the other teen on the arm as his expression becomes a bit more confident. Besides, remember what I told you? I'm not gonna hold back no matter what, so you better do your best during this match. Ida stares at him, wide-eyed, and then beams at him. Midoriya can practically feel the excitement radiating off of him. He barely manages to reply with an of course, before Bakugo is screaming for him from their part of the room, and he's hesitantly approaching the explosive blonde. Midoriya's face falls into an exhausted grimace as soon as his back is turned and Uraraka chews on her bottom lip, lost in her thoughts. The only good thing about this is that he can help Uraraka. He's studied Bakugo's moves for years, trailing after him like a sad, abandoned puppy. He knows what the boy is capable of, what he's likely to do during this battle. He's going to be targeted, so he's going to have to send Uraraka after the weapon, which will likely be guarded by Ida, since Bakugo is going to try and take him down no matter what. His quirk might come in handy here, since Bakugo won't hold back. He's got no protection from a hero costume, so he's likely going to F his body up when he dies. His stomach seems to ache as he thinks about it, but he shrugs it off. He needs to focus on drawing all of the attention from Uraraka so she can focus on Ida, and he needs to try and not permanently die from some freak accident with Bakugo's quirk at the same time. In summary, his life is a living hell, and he wants to ask Shigaraki to decay the whole place. Izuku gnaws on his nails as he watches Ida and Bakugo enter the building. Uraraka is rocking on her heels as they disappear from view. This is bad, but it could be worse that Ida doesn't hate me. But Ida will be guarding the weapon, so that doesn't really matter. Hey Midoriya? What's our plan? He turns to her and then taps his chin, trying to figure out the best way to word it within the maybe 3 minutes they still have to prepare. He's glad for the villain team's head start. It gives him time to clear his head a bit. He does have a plan in mind, but for it to work his guesses have to be correct. Knowing Bakugo, he's pretty confident they are. He fidgets with the roll of capture tape, a support item for the battle, and wonder about how he's going to use it. Is it strong enough to contain Bakugo? Bakugo will want to fight me, so Ida will probably be guarding the weapon from us. You'll probably have to go after him while I distract Bakugo. I might get injured from his explosions, but with my quirk I should be able to keep him distracted for long enough. I don't want to die, since that'll take a while and he might be able to catch up with you and help Ida, but I can afford some extra damage. I'm not completely sure what Ida's fighting style will be like here, but he's probably going to use his speed to his advantage in order to keep the weapon away from you, even if you use your quirk to float. I might be able to aim Bakugo's explosion just right and give you an advantage, but I'll have to be really lucky to make that work. He jumps when the alarm that signifies the start of the battle begins, and the two exchange a nod before walking forwards. The building gives him a strange feeling, although that might be the squirming feeling in his stomach that makes him feel like he might puke. Uraraka is walking beside him before a flash catches his attention and he quickly moves the two of them out of the way of the explosion. Half of his face gets caught in the blast, and he winces when he touches the skin with his fingers. The skin is burnt badly, but he thinks it will heal. How long is the real question? I can't take this many strong attacks before my body gives out and gives Bakugo an opening. He shrugs the thought to the back of his mind and stands to his feet, helping Uraraka regain her balance. Bakugo aims his right arm to attack them, and he surges forwards to twist the angle of the attack. Bakugo stumbles and snarls at Midoriya, who feels a wave of nervous satisfaction wash over him. I knew you were going to use your right arm. His voice sounds strange with the burn around the side of his mouth, and he winces at the strange feeling of talking with such an injury. Remember that notebook you burnt and threw into the fish pond? Those were notes I'd taken notes on various heroes, including you. I've written new ones, you know. I know what you're going to do, Bakugo. I know your fighting style. He takes a deep breath and ignores the slight rasp in his chest. I'm not going to be the same quirkless kid you pushed around for years, not anymore. I'm not going to give up. Bakugo's face twists with anger as his palms spark with heat. Midoriya inhales sharply as he hears Ida attempt to contact Bakugo. The words are difficult to make out, with the ringing in his ear and the distance between. Keep guarding the core, Four Eyes. He barks before cutting his teammate off. Bakugo rushes forwards and aims another explosion at Midoriya. He cringes at the wave of heat he can feel. Bakugo isn't holding back, he already knows that, but surely someone should be making sure he doesn't take a simple training exercise so seriously? He's okay with being hurt, his quirk will help him, but he doesn't want Uraraka to be hurt. Not only because of the disadvantage it will put them at, but because he doesn't know if the exercise will end if she does get seriously hurt. All Might won't let anything happen to her. To either of us, he shakily reassures himself. The lingering, childish fixation on the hero helps guide him forwards as he swallows thickly and looks over at Uraraka, determination shining in his eyes. Uraraka, go on without me. You need to reach Ida if we have a chance of winning this. She nods and runs off, disappearing around the corner. Midoriya's relief doesn't last long and reaches for the support item, wrapping the tape around Bakugo's leg. He holds his breath as the explosive teen looks down at it and then breaks out and swings his right arm forward with another explosive attack. Midoriya manages to dodge, thanks his analysis, and then takes a moment to reevaluate. I can't dodge forever, he reminds himself. I'll wear myself out, and Bakugo will eventually catch on. I need a strategy. He stands and, managing another boost of strength, he runs, darting past identical hallways and around sharp corners. He stops when his legs ache and slumps against a wall. He can still hear Bakugo yelling at him, so he can't be that far. That or he's been followed, both are pretty bad. Stop hiding, you pathetic Deku. Bakugo shouts, and Midoriya cringes at the nickname. It's always sounded so bitter and angry coming out of Bakugo's mouth. I'm superior to you, and you know it, you've always been a quirkless loser. You think you can run off with a bunch of weirdos and come back with a quirk that isn't even useful? I'll show you your place, Deku, and you'll never be able to show your face around these people ever again. His voice has been steadily rising, and a shiver runs down Midoriya's back. He already knows all of that, he's known it for years. You're not quirkless anymore, he reminds himself. Remember what you said earlier, you're not going to be the crybaby that he pushes around anymore. You got rid of Aldra, you can face Bakugo and his stupid superiority complex. He touches his face again. The burn from earlier is almost completely healed. It must have been severe enough for his quirk to start working on healing the skin. I guess I've been too distracted to notice it during the battle, he notes as he carefully slips around another few corners, Bakugo's voice growing fainter. If he can find a good hiding spot, he can make a good strategy. Bakugo, from what he's noticed, relies on his power a lot. If he can avoid that, he can distract him long enough for Uraraka to deal with Ida. Sheet, I hope she's okay. I completely forgot to ask her where she was after Bakugo attacked me again. He cringes at the oversight and then shakes his head. He can still figure it out, it's fine. If he gets too caught up on small mistakes, then Bakugo will be able to take him down easily. I hope you're having better luck than I am, Uraraka. He knows he can't hide forever, but it's his best option at the moment. Rushing at Bakugo without a plan would basically be suicide, and he really doesn't feel like having his abdomen blown to bits again. He can still hear the loud, angry yelling from his opponent, and he swallows the lump in his throat as he tries to judge the distance. Taking a chance, he ducks around another few corners to get further away from him. He's going to find me eventually, I need to check on Uraraka before he attacks. He takes a deep breath and ignores the icy cold fear seeping into his bones. Bakugo can't kill him unless he gets a really lucky hit, and All Might will stop him before anything like that happens. It's only training, that's all it is, a test. Uraraka? Are you okay? Where are you at? He asks, keeping his voice soft but audible. Yeah, I'm alright, she replies after a second, and he sighs in relief. I'm on the 5th floor, middle room. I can see Ida and the weapon, I'm waiting for the best chance to go for it. He's about to reply when another explosion flies past, and he barely manages to dodge the blast, falling to the floor with a grunt. He quickly twists around to face Bakugo, who's sneering at him. His arm is extended, likely to prepare for another attack, and Midoriya scrambles to his feet before he can get backed into a corner on the ground. He rolls his shoulders as Bakugo's lips curl back further, white teeth on display and eyes blazing with unhidden anger. At least I know Uraraka is alright, now I can just focus on stopping Bakugo. Don't try to run, Deku. Even if I kill you, your stupid quirk will bring you back. He barks, and Midoriya tries to hide the way he flinches. He gestures to his outstretched arm and grins, wide and bordering on unhinged. My hero costume has bracers that can store the sweat that lets me create my explosions. Now that it's stored up enough, he reaches up to the bracer and pulls, and Midoriya can barely blink before a huge explosion is heading towards him. He manages to roll away slightly, but it catches a good portion of his right side as it destroys a portion of the building. A searing pain jolts through him, and he bites down on his tongue to keep from crying. He looks down and the urge to cry is replaced to the urge to vomit. There's a large gaping wound in his side, muscle twitching against the cold air, the skin charred and burnt and bones he can identify as his ribs sticking out jaggedly. Not quite as bad as the Quirk apprehension test, but still pretty gruesome to look at. His face is burnt again and he can't feel his right leg. He barely manages to stand, supporting himself on the rubble of the building. He's not dead, at least not yet, but his vision is hazy like TV static and he can't hear anything through the ringing in his ears. I need to stay alive, until we win this. I can do that, right? I'll heal, I've gotta heal, my quirk will do the work. Are you effing insane? He manages to spit out, alongside bloodied saliva. His voice slurs and cracks, and his mouth tastes like metal, heat, and ash. Bakugo narrows his eyes. Just rely on your sudden quirk, Deku. After that, All Might is talking to Bakugo, so he risks another glance down. His quirk has realized the issue and he can see his flesh moving and slowly, carefully winding itself together, cords of muscle twisting together and filling in the spot where it was blown away with the wall of the building. It's disgusting, but oddly he can't stop watching it. It's slower than usual, maybe death speeds up the process? He can't think about that right now, because Bakugo lunges forwards to punch him. All Might must have warned him about using so much force, he decides. His body protests as he ducks away from the powerful fist aimed at him. I've got to defend myself somehow, or else he's going to kill me. He adjusts his positioning so his healthy side is facing the blonde, but another explosion comes from his hand and adjusts his trajectory. Another explosion hits his back, and he cries out at the pain of the scorched skin meeting the edges of his slowly healing wound. A rough, gloved hand grabs his arm and flips him through the air, bloodied saliva flying from his lips when his back slams against the ground, dark red against dull gray as Bakugo looms above him. You're beneath me, Death. You've always been beneath me. Bakugo yells, and if he could move his tongue enough to form words at the moment, he would have told the explosive teen that he's known that for the past 15 years of his life. He's healing, his bones are no longer visible as the muscles continue to slowly fill the empty space back in, still uncomfortable without a layer of skin covering them, but definitely better, but his back still hurts and his leg is tingling with pins and needles. He has no time to come up with a strategy, he needs distance between him and Bakugo. He leaps to his feet, ignoring the jolt of pain that runs through his body, and tries to run, but Bakugo has him cornered and he's going to let Uraraka down. He swallows and notices that Bakugo is preparing another explosion. If he's going to F up, he might as well try to help his teammate out. He waits with bated breath as Bakugo aims his explosion, and then rushes forwards. He grabs Bakugo's arm and, with more strength than he should be using, aims the blast upwards as it goes off. The ceiling breaks against the attack and he cringes as dust and rubble falls against his shoulders and turns his green hair gray. He stumbles backwards with a cough, pleasantly surprised to see that his spit is no longer colored crimson. He hopes his plan is working, because he.is exhausted. His vision is fading to pure black. A nap, he tells himself, a nap, just to speed up the process a bit. Yeah, that's all this is gonna be. His eyes roll back in his head as Bakugo starts yelling his usual death threats. Every word is muffled in Midoriya's ears as he falls back into that cold, dark abyss on the destroyed floor of the building. Midoriya. His eyes open slowly, his head pounding and vision swimming. The floor is too cold, too rough. Everything aches and he jumps when he feels a hand on his shoulder, his heart beating rapidly in his chest. Oh good, you're awake. Uraraka and Ida are hovering over him, Uraraka's hand on his shoulder. Your last move was amazing. We won the battle. He blinks at her before grinning. He touches his side and realizes the wound has fully healed. You were out for a few minutes, but since we know how your quirk works, we were able to make sure All Might knew you were gonna be okay. He nods and accepts her help getting to his feet. Come on, All Might wants to go over the results with us before the next match starts. Uraraka skips ahead of them and Midoriya walks next to Ida, leaning on him slightly. His body still hurts, and he wonders if it's a side effect of overusing his quirk. That's annoying, but it makes sense, he thinks. You know, Midoriya, for not truly being in the hero course, you did very well. You didn't let Bakugo get you down. If I had an injury like that, I wouldn't have been able to fight against someone as strong as him. Midoriya's face turns red as he looks down at his shoes and mumbles out a thanks. Once they're out of the building and approaching the group, he swallows and tries to avoid eye contact with anyone, especially All Might and Bakugo. He hopes this isn't the start of something worse. Bakugo's been staring at him for the past 5 minutes. It's starting to get unsettling. All Might has gathered them all for the critique of the teams, and he's luckily situated away from the blonde teen, in between Uraraka and Ida. Young Midoriya, do you need to visit Recovery Girl? That looked like a dangerous injury. Why didn't you stop the exercise then? You didn't know the full extent of my quirk? The bitter part of his mind silently snarks in reply. He takes a deep breath and tries to calm the shakiness of his arm as he shakes his head at the hero. Very well then. Young Bakugo, whether you win or lose, you must take a look back, reflect on your experience, and move forwards. Bakugo snarls at the man in reply, either too angry or too shocked about losing to Midoriya to form a properly worded reply. Young Ida was the best during the match. All Might gestures to the boy, and if Ida flusters under the praise he doesn't outwardly show it. Midoriya wishes that he had the ability to not turn bright red at any positive feedback, but unfortunately he hasn't gained that skill yet. Now, can anyone tell me why that is? The girl with a black ponytail, Yaoyorozu, raises her hand after a moment of thought. Ah yes, Yaoyorozu. Would you like to share your answer with the others? She nods gracefully and then clears her throat before she gestures to the groups. Midoriya leans in slightly, eager to hear whatever advice she wants to offer them about the match. He was, technically, passed out for the last bit after he aimed Bakugo's explosion, so he's clueless about anything after that other than his team's victory. Bakugo used large ranged attacks indoors, which was an idiotic move. It also severely injured Midoriya. Without his Quirk's healing abilities it's likely even Recovery Girl couldn't have helped him. Uraraka let herself become distracted when facing off with Ida, and her game became loose. When Midoriya aimed Bakugo's explosion upwards, she used the rubble against Ida. While it worked, it was quite reckless. Ah, so that's what happened. I was planning on something like that, but I wasn't sure if it would work or not, Midoriya thinks as Uraraka nods and Bakugo rolls his eyes, his hands clenched into tight fists at his sides. Ida was the best in this match because he adapted his situation the most and developed a counter-strategy for his opponent. She lowers her hand as she finishes speaking. I should really clear a time to speak with her, she's definitely really smart. Very good, Yaoyorozu. Now, our next match will be the hero team of Todoroki and Shoji against the villain team of Ojiro and Hagakure. All Might announces. Oh, this will be interesting. Todoroki and Shoji are both powerful, but Hagakure's invisibility might give them a boost in the stealth department and Ojiro is pretty mobile with his tail. Midoriya's fingers twitch as he watches the groups walk forwards. Unlike him and Bakugo, there's no noticeable tension between any of them. Todoroki's aura is overall cold and focused, but Midoriya thinks he's just not like that. The building is different, which he narrows down to the destruction from the explosions or a different interior design, so they can't use the last battle to cheat at finding locations. He wants to find a new uniform to change into, but he can't miss any of this valuable, up-close information about fighting styles, so he can deal with tattered clothes for now. Todoroki tells Shoji to step outside, and Midoriya wonders what the strategy is. Is he going to try and use his ice to make it easy to travel throughout the building? Or maybe figure out what Hagakure is going to be doing so she can't sneak up on them. With a large amount of ice, the dual-quirked boy freezes the building and, with his other hand, heats up the floor, preventing the other team from moving. With a blank expression, he presses his hand against the core and effectively wins the match. Whoa, Uraraka whispers, he's really powerful. She claps her hands together excitedly, bouncing on her heels. Powerful, but seems to favor his ice quirk, hates Endeavor. Just what's going on with you, Todoroki? Midoriya thinks as he nods along. The match is short and sweet, and he can't help but feel a bit bad for Shoji not getting to do anything. The rest of the battles pass quickly, with Midoriya gathering tidbits of information from each round. Once everyone has finished, they all gather around All Might again. Well done everyone. For your first team training exercise, you all performed wonderfully. You can all change clothes and return to your classroom. Young Midoriya, you might want to stop by Recovery Girls for a spare uniform, seeing as you don't have a hero costume. Really? Not because I gave you a sneak peek of my insides? He nods and follows the rest of the students out, and then falls back before his detour to walk next to Todoroki. He smiles at the boy and gets an expression that reminds him of their first awkward meeting a while back. Your quirk is really cool, Todoroki. It was impressive how you were able to freeze the building with that much ice and reach the core so quickly. He comments, deciding a friendly remark about his abilities can't be taken wrong. Todoroki looks over at him, eyes darting from his messy hair to his ruined uniform to the way he still seems to be favoring one leg as he walks. Midoriya winces at the reminder, it must be a slight quirk side effect. Recovery Girl will fix it easy. Quirk overuse, already? Well, I guess my last death wasn't very long ago. I've got to be careful about spacing them out. Or maybe they add up. I've died 0.3 times so far, and I didn't discover my quirk until recently, so I might need to take it slow. He shakes himself out of his thoughts when Todoroki finally looks ready to talk. Thanks, but it was nothing. A pause. You did well against Bakugo despite not having any training with your quirk, with injuries as severe as that I was expecting a worse outcome. It almost sounds like a compliment, disguised under layers of indifference. If you attended the entrance exam, I'm sure you would have found your way into a UA course. He's not sure about that. The hero course entrance exam is notoriously aimed at people with flashy quirks like Bakugo's, not so much ones like his. He's not sure what he would be able to do against giant robots except not die, but he only nods before making his detour to Recovery Girl's office. When he pushes the door open, she glances over and sighs at the state of him. He gives her a lopsided smile and she gestures for him to sit, which he does. He wants to get this over with as soon as possible. He tells her his theory and, after a few moments of looking over his new paperwork, she nods. It seems that way, yes. You need to be careful about using your quirk, young man. The physical effects will be bad enough, but I can't imagine constant death being good for your mental health either. She sends him off with a handful of gummies and a new outfit, which he's happy with. He takes his time getting back to the classroom, letting the new information blossom into varieties of theories, each spiraling off in a different direction from a general idea. Once he reaches the door, he pops the last gummy into his mouth and slides through the door, taking in the scene. It looks normal, but once again Bakugo seems to be missing from the variety of students sitting around and chatting about how cool training with All Might was. Kirishima looks up and grins. Midobro. The way you fought against Bakugo was super cool. He smashes his fists together and throws him a toothy smile with Midoriya eagerly returns. Another chorus of praise sweeps through the room as he catches Yaoyorozu's eye, her hands folded on her desk and a conflicted look on her face as she stares at his new uniform and lopsided stature. I mean, I would have started crying if I saw the inside of my body like that, but you took another explosion like a champ and helped Uraraka win the match. So manly, Kirishima adds, and Midoriya rubs the back of his neck. He's still not used to having so many compliments thrown his way. It's overwhelming but also amazing, and he's going to enjoy it while he can. He's not going to think about the day when that adoration will turn into hushed whispers of traitor and villain, not going to think about them coming from Aizawa's mouth, tainted with betrayal. He's snapped out of his spiral by another comment. Yes, your skills were impressive, Midoriya. However, I feel the exercise should have stopped as soon as we saw the extent of your injuries. A mock battle isn't as important as your health. A few of the students chime in with their agreement, and Midoriya internally agrees with them, but he's fine, so it's not a big deal anymore. As long as he doesn't die again anytime soon, his body will naturally mend itself and he's going to be fine. He shrugs and waves his free hand through the air, hoping he comes across less awkward and more relaxed, like he hasn't been fazed by the situation. He wonders if he's going to become desensitized to death, to seeing his own muscle and organ and bones sticking out of his skin, but the thought still makes him queasy, so he figures that if that happens, it won't happen for a while. It's fine, really. I'm sure All Might knows what he's doing. He's halfway lying through his teeth, but a little white lie to soothe his classmates is fine for now, nowhere near his ongoing one. Hey, have any of you seen Bakugo? A few students chime in telling him not to search for him, but Midoriya finds himself leaving the classroom anyways, heading through halls quickly growing easier to navigate. He sees the silhouette of the familiar teen outside and, against his better judgment, rushes forwards. He doesn't know why he's doing it. Bakugo clearly hates his guts, and he's not very fond of him either, but there's still a little part of him that wants to maybe salvage something before he goes back to the league. Bakugo. He catches the slip of the tongue before he can complete the nickname, and a fiery red gaze meets his own as he stops in front of the hero student. Listen, I really did just discover my quirk, Bakugo. It was dash. He shakes his head. He doesn't want to start rambling. He can't just shout you made me go through with the swan dive either, because that's private information that he isn't quite ready to share with anyone outside of the league yet. I haven't been tricking you, I wouldn't do that. Not in the past, Anyways, not before I took your advice. Bakugo stares at him before he scoffs and turns, his face contorted in his usual anger, and for a second Midoriya wonders if he can book it fast enough to avoid any more damage. Bakugo WHPs around to face him again and leans in. That match ended fair and square, loser, so shut up about it already. His breath smells of the smoke from fireworks and the words are acidic coming off of his tongue. Midoriya leans back and keeps his expression as neutral as possible. Bakugo jabs him in the chest. I don't know what if morons took you in, but I'm going to be the #1 hero, got it? You're always going to be beneath me, a weakling who's going to scrape by with a semi-useful quirk. All Might appears in the distance and Midoriya takes his chance to escape as the two have their own little conversation. He overhears Bakugo yelling about how he's going to pass All Might, and said Hero talking about how hard teaching is. Once he's sure neither are paying attention to him, his expression drops from positive-leaning neutrality to annoyance as he runs a hand over it. No more bullshit heroics with Bakugo, he thinks as he makes his way to the teacher's lounge. I'm exhausted.